Welcome to another exciting episode on Monkey D.F.I.C. Today, we're exploring a captivating tale called What If Garp Killed Akainu at Marineford. Before we begin, if you enjoy our content, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And now, the story awaits. Chapter 1, The Choice That Changed Everything. The sea roared and the sky cracked with thunder above Marineford. Blood and seawater mingled on the battlefield as pirates and marines clashed in what would become the most infamous battle of the era. Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp sat rigid on the execution platform, his weathered face frozen in an expression of pure agony as he watched his grandson Luffy fighting desperately below. "That damn brat," Garp muttered, his fists clenching so tight his knuckles turned white. "Throwing his life away like this." Sengoku shot him a sidelong glance. "Your family has always been trouble, Garp." Garp didn't respond. His eyes tracked Luffy's movements across the chaotic battlefield. The boy was pushing himself beyond human limits, running on nothing but willpower as he fought to reach the execution platform where Ace was chained. Everything happened so fast after that. Somehow, impossibly, Luffy had managed it. The key to Ace's seastone handcuffs clattered to the ground. Flames erupted as Portgas D. Ace stood free, back to back with his brother. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed like they might actually escape. Then Admiral Akainu stepped forward, molten magma dripping from his fists. "The son of Dragon and the son of Roger," Akainu growled, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Two demons who should never have been born." Garp watched in mounting horror as Akainu baited Ace with insults to Whitebeard. The hot-headed young pirate took the bait, turning back to face the Admiral instead of fleeing with his brother. "Ace, no!" Luffy screamed, but it was too late. Akainu's fist transformed into magma, aimed directly at Luffy. Ace moved without hesitation, placing himself between his brother and certain death. Time slowed to a crawl. Garp saw it all unfolding, saw Akainu's fist about to punch through his grandson's chest. In that microsecond, every oath he'd sworn to the Marines, every principle he'd upheld for decades, evaporated like mist. Enough. Garp moved faster than a man his age should be capable of moving. One moment he was on the execution platform, the next, he was between Akainu and Ace, his fist coated in haki so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. Akainu's eyes widened in shock. "Garp. What are you?" The punch connected with Akainu's face with such force that the sound resembled a cannon blast. Blood and teeth exploded from the Admiral's mouth as his head snapped backward at an unnatural angle. The shockwave from the impact rippled outward, cracking the very ice beneath their feet. But Garp wasn't finished. As Akainu staggered back, Garp closed the distance in an instant, his second punch driving straight through the Admiral's chest. Magma and blood sprayed across the ice as Garp's fist emerged from Akainu's back. The battlefield fell silent. Every eye turned to watch as Admiral Akainu, Sakazuki, the Marine's rabid dog, slumped to the ground. Dead. Garp stood over the body, his white uniform splattered with red and orange. The expression on his face wasn't regret or horror at what he'd done. It was cold fury. "Nobody touches my grandsons," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent battlefield. Sengoku was the first to recover. "Garp," he roared from the execution platform. "What have you done?" The spell broke. Marines and pirates alike erupted in chaos. Garp turned to Ace and Luffy, both frozen in shock. "Run," he ordered. "Now." Luffy snapped out of his daze first. "Grandpa. I said run." Garp shouted, shoving them both. "Get back to the ships. I'll cover you." Ace finally found his voice. "Why?" "Why would you? Because you're my family," Garp said, his voice softening for just a moment. "Now go. We'll talk when we're not surrounded by people trying to kill us." Marine soldiers were closing in, though many seemed hesitant to attack the legendary hero of the Marines. Garp turned to face them, cracking his knuckles. "Anyone who tries to stop my grandsons dies next," he announced, and the advancing line of Marines faltered. Whitebeard's booming laugh cut through the chaos. "Wahaha! Garp, you crazy old bastard! Men! Cover their retreat!" The Whitebeard pirates roared in response, surging forward to create a path toward the bay. Luffy grabbed Ace's arm and started pulling him toward the ships. "Luffy, we can't just leave him," Ace protested. "He'll be fine. Grandpa is the strongest," Luffy shouted back, though tears streamed down his face. "We have to trust him." As the brothers fled, Garp unleashed decades of combat experience on any marine foolish enough to try stopping them. His fists blurred with speed, each punch sending bodies flying. He wasn't holding back anymore. From the elevated command platform, Sengoku watched his oldest friend commit the ultimate act of treason. His hands shook with anger and grief. "Fleet Admiral." A young officer approached, trembling. "Should we prioritize capturing Garp or the pirates?" Sengoku clenched his jaw. "Focus on the pirates. I'll deal with Garp myself." He activated his devil fruit power, his body growing and transforming into a massive golden Buddha. With one mighty leap, he landed in front of Garp, creating a crater in the ice. "Have you lost your mind, old friend?" Sengoku demanded, his voice deeper in this form. Garp spat blood onto the ice. "Maybe I've finally found it. You've thrown away everything, your rank, your honor, your legacy, for those pirate boys." Sengoku's voice was incredulous. "No." Garp's eyes hardened. "I threw away nothing but chains. For my family." The two legends clashed, their punches creating shockwaves that knocked nearby combatants off their feet. Despite their age, they moved with devastating power and precision, each blow capable of leveling buildings. "Think of what you're doing," Sengoku shouted between exchanges. "The world government will never stop hunting you. Let them try." Garp roared back. "I've spent my life serving their justice, and what did it get me? They tried to execute my grandson for the crime of being born." Their fight shook the very foundations of Marineford, but those watching closely might have noticed something strange. For all the sound and fury, neither legend was landing truly decisive blows on the other. On the sidelines, Vice Admiral Casimir watched the battle with growing rage. Unlike many of the other Marines frozen in shock, his fury built with each passing second. Akainu had been his mentor, the man who had shaped Casimir's absolute sense of justice. "This is treason," Casimir hissed, his hand gripping his sword so tight the handle cracked. "Absolute treason." His second-in-command, a lieutenant named Hara, grabbed his arm. "Sir, we should help Fleet Admiral Sengoku capture." "No." Casimir's eyes never left Garp. "Sengoku is holding back. Look at them, they're putting on a show while those pirate scum escape." And indeed, while Garp and Sengoku's battle created an impressive display, the Whitebeard pirates were successfully retreating toward their ships, taking the wounded Whitebeard himself with them. Luffy and Ace were nowhere to be seen. "Sir?" Hara questioned. "Gather our unit," Casimir ordered. "We're going after the traitor's grandsons." Casimir led a group of 20 elite marines, cutting through the battlefield toward the bay where the pirate ships were preparing to depart. They moved with precision and purpose, evading the major conflict zones. But someone had noticed their movement. As Casimir's unit reached the edge of the bay, a massive wall of ice erupted from the water, blocking their path. Admiral Akiji stood before them, his normally lazy expression unusually focused. "Going somewhere, Vice Admiral Casimir." Casimir's face contorted with rage. "Out of my way, Admiral. Those pirates are escaping." Fleet Admiral Sengoku's orders were to focus on the main battlefield, Akiji said coolly. "Sengoku is compromised. His friendship with the traitor Garp is clouding his judgment." Casimir shouted, pointing at the ships now pulling away. Akainu is dead, and you're letting his killers escape. Akiji sighed, frost forming with each breath. Return to your post, Vice Admiral. That's an order. For a moment, it seemed Casimir might defy even an admiral. His hand tightened on his sword, his body tensing for attack. Then, with visible effort, he forced himself to step back. This isn't over, he promised, his voice deadly quiet. Justice will be served. Perhaps, Akiji replied. But not by you, and not today. Back at the central battlefield, Garp and Sengoku continued their theatrical battle. Both men were breathing heavily, though more from the emotional strain than physical exertion. The ships are clearing the bay, Sengoku said quietly during a momentary pause, their faces close as they grappled. Your grandsons made it. Relief flashed across Garp's face. Thank you, old friend. Don't thank me, Sengoku growled, louder now for anyone listening. You're still a traitor to the Marines, Garp. He punctuated this statement with a powerful punch that Garp deliberately failed to dodge. The blow sent him flying into a wall of ice, which cracked and partially collapsed on him. Sengoku approached the rubble, where Garp lay bloodied but conscious. He leaned down as if to deliver a finishing blow. Run, you old fool, he whispered instead. I'll create enough confusion for you to slip away. There's a small marine vessel at the eastern dock. The guards there are loyal to me. Garp coughed, spitting blood. Sengoku, after this, we're enemies, Sengoku cut him off, his expression pained. The next time we meet, I won't hold back. With that, Sengoku straightened and turned to address the Marines still fighting. Attention all forces. Admiral Akainu has fallen. Whitebeard is retreating. Secure the wounded and regroup. The battlefield erupted in a new kind of chaos, Marines rushing to help fallen comrades, officers shouting contradictory orders, the remaining Whitebeard pirates making their final push to escape. In the confusion, nobody noticed as Garp slipped away from the rubble, keeping to the shadows as he made his way toward the eastern dock. Nobody except Vice Admiral Casimir, who watched from a distance, his eyes never leaving the old man's retreating figure. Sir? Lieutenant Hara questioned, seeing the direction of his gaze. Let him go, Casimir said, surprising his subordinate. For now. But sir, he killed Admiral Akainu. Shouldn't we, and what would you do against Garp the Fist, Lieutenant? Casimir asked coldly. No, we need to be smarter than that. Mark my words, this betrayal will echo through the ages. And I will personally ensure that Garp pays for every drop of blood spilled here today. He turned away, his resolve hardening into something dangerous. The world has changed today. Make sure our men understand that. The age of half-measures and compromise is over. Miles from Marineford, aboard one of Whitebeard's allied ships, Luffy paced the deck frantically. His body was pushed far beyond its limits, held together by willpower and the emergency treatment law had provided. He should be here by now, Luffy muttered, staring back at the shrinking silhouette of Marineford. Where is he? Ace sat nearby, his own injuries bandaged but his expression hollow. Luffy. Gramps might not make it. Shut up. Don't say that. Luffy rounded on his brother. He's coming. He has to. The crew kept their distance, giving the brothers space. Many still couldn't believe what they'd witnessed, the legendary marine hero Garp killing an admiral to save the sons of the two men the world government hated most. Jinbe approached cautiously. Luffy-kun, we need to discuss where to go next. We can't stay in these waters. We're not going anywhere without Grandpa, Luffy insisted. Don't be stupid, Ace snapped, though there was no real heat in his voice. Everyone on this ship is in danger every second we're near Marineford. I don't care. We're not leaving him. Luffy. Ace stood up, wincing in pain. He made his choice. He sacrificed everything for us. If we waste that by getting captured or killed, what was it all for? Luffy's eyes filled with tears. But Ace, a lookout's shout interrupted them. Ship approaching from the east. It's a marine vessel. Everyone tensed, prepared for another battle. Injured as they were, none of them were sure they could survive another confrontation. Wait, the lookout called again. There's only one person aboard. It's Vice Admiral Garp. Luffy's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. Grandpa. He stretched his arms, preparing to rocket himself toward the approaching ship. Luffy, wait. Jinbe grabbed him. It could be a trap. But Luffy wasn't listening. He launched himself across the water, landing awkwardly on the deck of the small marine vessel. And there was Garp, bloodied and bruised, but very much alive. You crazy brat, Garp grumbled, but there was no hiding the relief in his voice. I told you to escape. Like I'd leave without you. Luffy tackled his grandfather in a rubbery hug. Garp winced but didn't push him away. All right. Let's get back to the others. We've got a lot to figure out. When they returned to the Allied ship, a strange tension filled the air. Pirates who had spent their lives fearing the name Garp now found themselves face to face with the legend, no longer as an enemy, but as an unlikely ally. Ace hadn't moved from his spot. His eyes met Garp's, a storm of conflicting emotions in that gaze. Garp approached slowly, stopping a few feet from his other grandson. Ace. Why? Ace demanded, his voice cracking. Why would you throw everything away? For us? You're a Marine. We're pirates. We're your enemies. You've never been my enemy, boy, Garp said quietly. You're my grandson. Always have been, always will be. Even though I'm Roger's son. The son of the Pirate King. The demon child the whole world wants dead. Ace's voice rose with each question, years of pain and self-loathing breaking through. You're Portgas D. Ace, Garp replied firmly. Son of Portgas D. Rouge, the woman who loved you so much she held you in her womb for 20 months to protect you. And yes, son of Gold Roger, a man who, for all his faults, would have moved heaven and earth to protect you if he'd lived to see your birth. Garp stepped closer. But more than any of that, you're the boy I raised. The brother Luffy would die for. The son Whitebeard claimed as his own. That's who you are, Ace. Ace's eyes filled with tears. He tried to speak, but no words came. Garp closed the distance between them and, for perhaps the first time since Ace was a small child, pulled him into a hug. I made my choice, Garp said, his voice gruff with emotion. And I'd make it again in a heartbeat. Ace broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep, years of wondering if he deserved to live, if anyone could truly love the son of the devil. He clutched at Garp's blood-stained uniform like a drowning man grasping a lifeline. Luffy joined the embrace, his rubber arms wrapping around both of them multiple times. The 3 generations of the Monkey D family stood united for the first time in years. The moment was interrupted by Jinbe clearing his throat. I hate to break this up, but we need to move. Marine ships will be searching these waters soon. Garp pulled back, wiping his eyes with his sleeve before becoming all business. He's right. And we need to figure out where to go. The Marines and world government will be hunting all 3 of us now. Amazon Lily, Luffy suggested. Hancock will help us. The Kuja pirates. Garp raised an eyebrow. Since when are you friendly with the Pirate Empress? Luffy shrugged. She likes me. She'll help. Ace and Garp exchanged a bewildered look, the first moment of normalcy between them. Fine, Garp conceded. It's as good a place as any to regroup and make plans. But we can't stay there long. The world government will tear apart the entire Grand Line looking for us. As they set course for Amazon Lily, Garp moved to the stern of the ship, gazing back at Marineford, now just a speck on the horizon. The weight of what he'd done was still setting in. Decades of service, his reputation, his code, all sacrificed in a single moment of choice. Do you regret it? Garp turned to find Trafalgar Law watching him with those calculating eyes. No, Garp answered truthfully. But the consequences are just beginning. Law nodded. The world will change because of what you did today. The balance of power, the belief in the Marines' absolute justice, you shattered it all with one punch. Garp gave a humorless laugh. Maybe it needed shattering. In the ruins of Marineford, emergency medical teams worked frantically to save the wounded. The body of Admiral Akainu had been removed, covered with the Marine flag. The mood among the surviving Marines ranged from shock to rage to quiet uncertainty. In the Fleet Admiral's temporary office, Sengoku sat with his head in his hands. Across from him, Admiral Kizaru lounged with his typical affected casualness, though his eyes were sharper than usual. My, Kizaru drawled. What a messy day it's been. Garp the hero, a traitor. Who could have imagined? Sengoku didn't respond. The Gorosei are demanding answers, Kizaru continued. They're quite upset about losing an admiral and letting the son of Roger escape. Again. They'll get their answers when I have them, Sengoku finally growled. And what answers will those be? Kizaru asked, studying his superior carefully. Will you tell them how your old friend managed to escape so easily? Or how several key Marines seem to be looking the other way at just the right moment? Sengoku's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Choose your next words very carefully, Borsellino. Kizaru raised his hands in mock surrender. Just making observations. No need to be so serious. Though others are making the same observations. Our young Vice Admiral Casimir, for instance, seems particularly motivated to address what he sees as failures in the chain of command. Casimir should mind his rank, Sengoku snapped. Oh, certainly, Kizaru agreed lazily. But with Akainu gone, his faction needs a new leader. And Casimir has always been ambitious. A knock at the door interrupted them. Admiral Akiji entered without waiting for permission, his normally relaxed demeanor tensed with urgency. News from Impel Down, he reported. There's been another breakout. Sengoku stood up so quickly his chair crashed to the floor. What? It seems someone took advantage of our forces being concentrated here, Akiji explained. Preliminary reports suggest Monkey D. Dragon was personally involved. The Revolutionary Army attacked Impel Down while we were fighting here. Sengoku's voice was deadly quiet. Not attacked, infiltrated, Akiji clarified. Surgical precision. They freed specific prisoners and disappeared before the full alert could even be raised. Which prisoners? Kizaru asked, suddenly interested. Akiji met Sengoku's gaze directly. Former revolutionary commanders. And Monkey D. Garp's old crew from his days as a captain. All of them. Sengoku sank slowly back into his chair. Dragon knew. Somehow, he knew what Garp would do here. Or he planned for the possibility, Akiji suggested. Either way, it's clear the revolutionaries are making a major move. First Garp betrays us, then this, Sengoku muttered, rubbing his temples. The Gorosei will be calling for blood. Speaking of blood, Kizaru interjected, our dear departed Akainu had quite a few passionate supporters among the younger officers. They're already demanding a hunt for Garp and his pirate grandsons. Sengoku slammed his fist on the desk. I'll decide what the Marines will do. Not some hot-headed rookies with a vendetta. Of course, Kizaru smiled his infuriating smile. But when the fleet admiral seems reluctant to pursue his treasonous friend with full vigor, people talk. The implied accusation hung in the air between them. Sengoku's expression hardened. Prepare a broadcast to all Marine bases, he ordered. Monkey D. Garp is to be designated a traitor to the Marines and enemy of the world government. Set his bounty at. He hesitated only briefly. 5 billion berries. Both admirals' eyes widened. It would be the highest bounty ever issued. And his grandsons? Akiji asked quietly. Increase Fire Fist Ace to 900 million. Straw Hat Luffy to 500 million. Sengoku stood up again. And make it clear, anyone who harbors them will face the full might of marine justice. Akiji frowned slightly but nodded. Kizaru's smile returned, though it didn't reach his eyes. Well then, Kizaru said, rising languidly to his feet. It seems the hunt is on. After the admirals left, Sengoku remained alone in his office, staring at the wall where a younger Garp smiled from a framed photograph. They had been rookies together, risen through the ranks together, shaped the very concept of marine justice together. With a swift movement, Sengoku turned the photograph face down. You fool, Garp, he whispered. What have you started? The journey to Amazon Lily took several days. Garp spent much of it helping tend to the wounded pirates, his decades of battlefield medical experience proving invaluable. Many of the pirates remained wary of him, but his gruff efficiency and obvious concern for their well-being gradually eased tensions. Luffy recovered with his usual impossible speed, though the toll of Impel Down and Marineford left even his rubber body pushed to its limits. Ace's recovery was slower, the phantom pain of the near-fatal blow he'd almost received lingering in his mind if not his body. On the third night, Garp found Ace sitting alone at the bow, staring out at the moonlit sea. Can't sleep? Garp asked, settling his massive frame beside his grandson. Ace shook his head. Every time I close my eyes, I see it happening again. Akainu's fist coming toward me. Or worse, going through me and hitting Luffy instead. Garp nodded, understanding. The nightmares will fade eventually. Will they? Ace challenged. Do yours? From the wars you fought? A long silence stretched between them before Garp answered. No. Not completely. But you learn to live with them. Ace studied his grandfather's profile in the moonlight, seeing him not as the legendary Marine or the strict grandfather, but as a man, older, wearier than Ace had ever noticed before. Why did you become a Marine? Ace asked suddenly. Garp seemed surprised by the question. That's a long story. We've got time. Garp sighed, leaning back on his hands. I grew up on a small island in the East Blue. Pirates raided us regularly. My parents were killed in one such raid when I was 10. Ace's eyes widened. Garp had never spoken of his own childhood before. A marine ship arrived too late to save them, but they drove the pirates off, Garp continued. The captain was a man named Monkey D. Bayard, my father's older brother. He took me in, raised me on marine bases. So you became a Marine because of family, Ace noted. Partly, Garp admitted. But also because I believed in what the Marines were supposed to stand for. Protection for the weak. Justice for the victimized. A force that stood between ordinary people and those who would prey on them. And now? Ace pressed. After serving them for decades, after seeing what they really are, do you still believe in that? Garp was quiet for so long that Ace thought he might not answer. I believe in what the Marines could be, Garp finally said. Should be. But the world government has twisted that purpose over the years. The celestial dragons, the Gorosei, they don't want justice. They want control. He turned to look directly at Ace. I spent too many years telling myself I could change things from the inside. That by training good men and women, by rising in the ranks, I could steer the Marines back toward true justice. But in that moment at Marineford, when Akainu was about to kill you just for being born, I finally had to admit the truth. Which is, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as the world government intends it to work. Garp's voice hardened. And I helped build it. The weight of that confession hung heavy in the salty air. So what now? Ace asked. You can't be a Marine anymore, but you're not a pirate. Garp laughed, a genuine bark of amusement. No, I'm definitely not a pirate. But I'm not done fighting for what I believe in. Whatever comes next, I'll face it head on. Same as always. Even if it means fighting your former comrades. Garp's expression sobered. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does. Well, I made my choice at Marineford. I'll live with the consequences. They sat in companionable silence after that, until the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon. Land ho, came a shout from the crow's nest. Amazon lily ahead. The mysterious island of women appeared through the morning mist, its serpent-shaped mountains rising dramatically from the sea. As they approached, a ship bearing the insignia of the Kuja pirates sailed out to meet them. Boa Hancock herself stood at the bow, her legendary beauty even more striking in person than in the stories. Her gaze swept across the approaching vessel until she spotted Luffy, at which point her severe expression melted into something startlingly lovesick. Luffy, she called, waving enthusiastically. You've returned to me. Garp raised his eyebrows and glanced at Ace, who looked equally confused by the Pirate Empress's reaction to Luffy. Told you she likes me, Luffy said with his characteristic simplicity, waving back. The reception on Amazon Lily was cautious but accommodating. By ancient law, no men were allowed on the island except in the outer areas, but Hancock made an exception for Luffy's party, escorting them personally to a secluded palace compound. The island is protected by my status as a warlord, Hancock explained as they settled in. But I don't know how long that protection will last, given recent events. The world government will strip you of your title if they discover you're harboring us, Garp warned her. Hancock tossed her hair dismissively. Let them try. Amazon Lily has remained independent for centuries. We will survive whatever comes. I wouldn't underestimate the world government's vindictiveness, Garp cautioned. Especially now. We won't stay long, just enough to recover and make plans. As if summoned by his words, a messenger arrived with a stack of newspapers. The front page carried the aftermath of Marineford in bold headlines. Marine hero turns traitor. Garp the Fist murders Admiral Akainu. Below was a picture of Garp standing over Akainu's fallen body, his fist still dripping with the Admiral's blood and magma. Smaller headlines announced the escape of Fire Fist Ace and the increased bounties on all three of their heads. 5 billion berries, Ace whispered, reading Garp's new bounty with disbelief. That's higher than any pirate in history. The world government fears me, Garp said simply. Not just for what I did, but for what I know. And what do you know? Hancock asked shrewdly. Before Garp could answer, the palace doors burst open. A Kuja warrior rushed in, breathless with excitement. My queen. A ship approaches, it carries the flag of the Revolutionary Army. Everyone tensed, Garp most of all. Dragon, he muttered. About time you showed your face, son. The revolutionary ship was permitted to dock alongside the Allied pirate vessel. From it emerged a hooded figure that even from a distance commanded attention, Monkey D. Dragon, the world's most dangerous criminal and leader of the Revolutionary Army. He was accompanied by a blond man in a top hat whom Luffy and Ace immediately recognized. Sabo, they shouted in unison, rushing forward to embrace their long-lost brother. Sabo laughed, tears in his eyes as he hugged them both. I thought I'd lost you both at Marineford. When I saw the broadcasts. Wait, you remember us? Luffy asked, pulling back to look at his face. My memories returned when I saw the news about Ace's scheduled execution, Sabo explained. I've been with the revolutionaries for years, but I didn't remember our childhood together until then. I tried to get to Marineford in time, but... You're here now, Ace said, gripping his shoulder. Our brother is alive. While the three sworn brothers reunited, Garp and Dragon stood facing each other, meters apart, neither making a move to close the distance. I never expected to see the day, Dragon finally said, his deep voice carrying despite its quietness. The great marine hero choosing family over duty. Is that why you're here? Garp demanded. To gloat. Dragon's stern face showed a flicker of something, hurt, perhaps, or simply frustration. I'm here because the world has changed. Because my son and his brother nearly died. Because my father has finally opened his eyes to what I've been fighting against all these years. I always knew what you were fighting against, Garp retorted. I just didn't agree with your methods. And now? Garp's shoulders sagged slightly. Now I'm not sure either of us has the right answer. But I know the world government needs to change. Dragon nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. He gestured toward a large case his men were unloading from the ship. We brought medical supplies. And information. What kind of information? The kind that explains why the world government was so desperate to execute Ace, even at the cost of war with Whitebeard, Dragon said. The kind that connects to the Void Century, to the ancient weapons, to everything the Gorosei have been hiding for centuries. Garp's eyes widened. You know about the will of D. For the first time, Dragon smiled, an expression so rarely seen it transformed his severe features. Not everything. But enough to know why they fear our family so much. As night fell on Amazon Lily, an unprecedented gathering took place in Hancock's palace. 3 generations of the monkey family, the 3 sworn brothers, the pirate empress, and representatives from both the Revolutionary Army and the Whitebeard pirates, enemies and allies brought together by circumstance. The world government will send everything they have after us, Garp told the assembled group. Not just Marines, but Cypher Pole, bounty hunters, even other warlords. Let them come, Ace said, flames flickering around his shoulders. We're stronger together. It's not just about strength, Dragon countered. This is about information and strategy. The revolutionaries have been preparing for years to expose the world government's crimes. With Garp's knowledge of marine operations and your connections to the pirate world, we have a unique opportunity. To do what, exactly? Hancock asked, skeptical. To change the world, Dragon answered simply. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. I don't care about changing the world. I'm going to be the Pirate King. Everyone turned to look at him. But, Luffy continued, his face serious, I won't let anyone hurt my family. Not the Marines, not the world government, not anyone. So if they're coming after Grandpa and Ace, they'll have to deal with me too. Garp laughed, a booming sound that filled the room. You haven't changed a bit, brat. None of you should stay together for long, Sabo cautioned. We're too tempting a target. But we need to coordinate, share information, be ready to help each other when needed. The revolutionaries have secure communication networks, Dragon added. And cells in every blue. Plans were made late into the night, safe harbors identified, communication protocols established, intelligence shared. Through it all, Garp found himself studying Dragon, this son he barely knew, seeing echoes of himself in the man's determination and tactical thinking. When the meeting finally broke up, Garp found himself alone with Dragon on one of the palace balconies overlooking the sea. We've never really talked, have we? Garp said after a long silence. Not since you left. There wasn't much to say, Dragon replied. You chose your path, I chose mine. I gave Luffy to Dayton to raise, Garp said suddenly. After you left. I thought the further he was from me, from the Marines, the safer he'd be. And yet you tried to make him a Marine. Garp sighed. I wanted to protect him. The Marines seemed the safest place, under my wing. Until they weren't, Dragon observed. Until they weren't, Garp agreed. Another silence fell between them, less tense than before. Your mother would be proud of you, Garp finally said. She always saw through the world government's lies. Dragon's stoic expression softened almost imperceptibly. And she would be proud of you for finally taking a stand. Better late than never, I suppose. Dragon turned to face his father fully. It's not too late to make a difference, old man. The knowledge you have, the respect you command even now, these are powerful weapons against the world government. I'm not joining your revolution, Garp warned. I'm not asking you to, Dragon replied. But we are on the same side now, whether you like it or not. Garp couldn't argue with that. Whatever path lay ahead, he had crossed a line at Marineford that could never be uncrossed. The world had changed, he had changed it, and now all that remained was to face what came next. As if reading his thoughts, Dragon added, the first waves are already forming. Vice Admiral Casimir has been promoted to replace Akainu. He's assembled a special task force with one mission, hunting down you and your grandsons. Garp's expression hardened. Casimir. Akainu's attack dog. He's more than that now, Dragon warned. He's become the face of absolute justice in Akainu's absence. And he's smarter than his mentor, more patient, more strategic. Let him come, Garp said, echoing Ace's earlier bravado. But inside, a cold certainty settled in his gut. The battles ahead would make Marineford look like a skirmish. And they would be fighting not just for their lives, but for the very soul of justice itself. Morning brought news that marine ships had been spotted in the calm belt, somehow navigating the Sea King-infested waters. Their time at Amazon Lily was up. As they prepared to split up, Luffy and his crew to continue their journey, Ace to reconnect with the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, and Garp to go with Dragon temporarily to meet with revolutionary commanders, Garp pulled his grandsons aside for a final word. Whatever happens next, he told them, his voice gruff with emotion, know that I made the right choice at Marineford. The only choice I could live with. Luffy tackled him in another rubbery hug. We'll see you soon, Grandpa. Ace stepped forward, extending his hand formally. Garp looked at it for a moment, then pulled Ace into a hug as well. Stay alive, Garp ordered them both. That's all I ask. As the various ships prepared to depart in different directions, Garp stood at the rail of the revolutionary vessel, watching his grandson's ships shrink in the distance. The weight of his decision at Marineford would always be with him, but for the first time in decades, he felt unburdened by the hypocrisy that had defined his later years with the Marines. Vice Admiral Casimir might be hunting them. The world government might have placed an unprecedented bounty on his head. The path ahead might be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But Monkey D. Garp had made his choice. And he would never regret it. Chapter 2, New Alliances, New Enemies. 6 months had passed since the world watched Monkey D. Garp drive his fist through Admiral Akainu's chest. 6 months of chaos as power vacuums formed and were violently filled across the seas. 6 months of unprecedented change that rippled through every corner of the world. On a remote island in the New World, hidden by perpetual mist and treacherous currents, a new base had taken shape. The locals called it Fist Island, partly for its shape, partly for its newest resident. Faster! Garp bellowed, hurling cannonballs at his grandsons with machine gun speed. You think the Marines will give you time to catch your breath? Luffy and Ace dodged frantically, their movements blurring with speed. They'd been at this for hours, but neither showed signs of quitting. Sabo watched from the sidelines, alternating between wincing in sympathy and laughing at their predicaments. You know, Sabo called to Garp, most grandfathers just take their grandkids fishing. Wahaha. Garp launched another barrage of cannonballs. Fishing's for after training. A blur of flame, and Ace incinerated 3 cannonballs mid-air. He'd gained remarkable control over his fire abilities in the past months, now able to precisely adjust the heat and spread of his flames. But Garp wasn't impressed. You're still thinking like a Logia user, Ace, he shouted. Relying too much on your devil fruit. What happens when you face a sea stone weapon? As if to illustrate his point, Garp suddenly appeared behind Ace, moving faster than seemed possible for a man his age. His fist, coated in hockey, connected with Ace's shoulder before the young pirate could react. Ace went flying across the training ground, crashing into a boulder that shattered on impact. "Ouch," Sabo commented. Luffy didn't have time to check on his brother. Garp's attention turned to him, and suddenly he was dodging a flurry of punches that made the air whistle. Gear second. Luffy activated his technique, his skin flushing pink as steam rose from his body. "Better." Garp approved, though his attacks didn't slow. "But you're still telegraphing your moves." For another hour, the training continued. By the time Garp finally called a halt, both Luffy and Ace lay sprawled on the ground, covered in bruises and breathing hard. "Not bad," Garp conceded, not even winded. "You're both stronger than you were at Marineford. But it's still not enough." Ace sat up, wincing. "Not enough for what, exactly?" "We've been training non-stop for months." "Not enough to survive what's coming," Garp said, his expression darkening. "The world government isn't just sending random marine squads after us. They're building something specifically to hunt us down." "The SSG," Sabo supplied, tossing water bottles to his brothers. "What's SSG?" Luffy asked, gulping water. "Special Security Group," Garp explained, sitting on a boulder that hadn't been destroyed in the training. "An elite unit formed after the warlord system was dissolved. Vice Admiral Casimir leads it now, with a single mission, capturing or killing us." The mention of Casimir made the atmosphere tense. In the months since Marineford, the former protege of Akainu had risen rapidly through marine ranks, his ruthless efficiency and unwavering commitment to absolute justice, making him the perfect face for the new, harder marine approach. "I heard stories about him in Marineford," Sabo said quietly. "Even the celestial dragons find him unsettling. He once executed an entire island's population because they unknowingly harbored a revolutionary." "That's bullshit," Ace spat. "Even the Marines wouldn't allow that." "It was covered up," Garp confirmed, surprising them. "Officially recorded as a natural disaster. I was suspicious at the time, but..." He trailed off, the weight of his former complacency heavy in his silence. "So we're training to fight this Casimir guy?" Luffy asked, already looking excited at the prospect of a new powerful opponent. "We're training so you don't have to fight him yet," Garp corrected. "Casimir is dangerous in ways you boys don't understand. He doesn't just have strength, he has the full backing of the world government and a network of informants that stretches across the world." He stood up, brushing dust from his pants. Gone was the marine uniform. These days, Garp dressed in simple but practical civilian clothes, though he kept his trademark coat, now stripped of its marine insignia. "There's more," he continued. "Our spy in Marine headquarters sent a message last night. Casimir is launching Operation Heretic tomorrow, simultaneous raids on suspected Garp-allied territories." "Which territories?" Sabo asked, instantly alert. "Fishman Island. Water 7. Drum Kingdom. Amazon Lily." Garp listed them grimly. "Anywhere I've had known connections over the years. They're going after our friends because of us," Luffy realized, his normally cheerful face hardening. "That's how Casimir operates," Garp nodded. "He applies pressure to everyone connected to his targets, creating an ever-tightening net until there's nowhere left to run." Ace stood up, fire literally flickering across his shoulders with his anger. "So what are we going to do about it?" Garp's smile was wolfish. "Spring the trap before it's set." In the newly rebuilt Marine headquarters at New Marineford, Vice Admiral Casimir studied the array of maps and intelligence reports spread across his desk. At 35, he was young for his rank, but his cold efficiency and uncompromising approach to justice had accelerated his rise, particularly after Akainu's death. "The operations are ready to launch at dawn, sir," Lieutenant Hara reported, standing at perfect attention. "All units are in position." "And our informants?" Casimir asked, not looking up from his maps. "Reporting no unusual activity at any of the target locations. They suspect nothing." Casimir finally looked up, his sharp features set in a perpetually severe expression. Unlike many high-ranking Marines who cultivated distinctive looks, Casimir was almost deliberately nondescript, medium height, trimmed dark hair, clean-shaven. His only distinctive feature was his eyes, a pale gray so light they appeared almost colorless. "The Revolutionary Army has spies everywhere," he said. "Assume they know." "Even so, sir, they can't possibly defend all the locations simultaneously," Hara pointed out. "They don't need to defend all of them. They only need to know which one is our true target." Casimir traced a finger along the route marked on the map. "Garp is no fool. He'll recognize the pattern. With respect, sir, that's why we're hitting all locations with equal force, to disguise our primary objective." Casimir's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Garp trained half the officers leading these operations. He knows their strengths, their weaknesses, their patterns of thought. If anyone can see through our strategy, it's him. He straightened up, adjusting his immaculate uniform. "Double the forces at the primary target. And dispatch the new SSG prototypes as well." Hara's eyes widened. "Sir, they haven't been fully tested. What better test than combat against the man who killed Admiral Akainu?" Casimir cut him off. "Besides, Dr. Vegapunk assures me they're ready." "Yes, sir." Hara hesitated. "And if Garp himself appears?" Casimir's lips curved in what might generously be called a smile. "Then I'll finally have the opportunity to look into the eyes of the man who murdered my mentor and betrayed everything the Marines stand for." After Hara left, Casimir moved to the window overlooking the harbor where dozens of Marine vessels prepared for tomorrow's operation. His reflection stared back at him, and for a moment, he allowed himself to remember the day that had set him on this path. He had been a nameless orphan on a lawless island when pirates slaughtered everyone he knew. Marine ships arrived too late to save anyone but him. Among those Marines was a young officer named Sakazuki, who found the boy hiding in the ruins of his village. Justice came too late for them, Sakazuki had told him, but it came nonetheless. "That is our duty, to bring justice, no matter how long it takes." Casimir had devoted his life to that principle, following in Sakazuki's footsteps, embracing the philosophy of absolute justice that recognized no extenuating circumstances, no exceptions, no mercy for those who broke the law. And then Garp had destroyed everything, killing Akainu, helping pirates escape, betraying the very institution he had helped build. "Justice may be slow," Casimir murmured to his reflection, "but it is inevitable." A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Admiral Kizaru entered, moving with his customary languid grace. My, working late again, Vice Admiral." Kizaru drawled. "Such dedication." Casimir immediately stood at attention. "Admiral. I didn't expect you this evening. Just checking on tomorrow's operation." Kizaru glanced lazily at the maps. "Quite the ambitious plan. The fleet admiral is concerned you might be overextending our resources. With respect, Admiral, we can't afford half measures when dealing with someone like Garp." "Oh, I quite agree," Kizaru said, picking up a report and glancing at it disinterestedly. "But 5 simultaneous operations, plus your special project at G5. It's all very dramatic." Casimir felt a chill. His special project at G5 was supposed to be known only to him and his most trusted subordinates. "The Admiralty has eyes everywhere, Vice Admiral," Kizaru said, as if reading his thoughts. "Even in places you might consider private." "I've hidden nothing from my superiors," Casimir responded carefully. "Every operation has been properly documented and approved." Of course. Kizaru waved a hand dismissively. "Though I wonder if the fleet admiral fully understood the experimental nature of what you're developing at G5. The implied threat was clear. Kizaru knew about the project and could expose it if Casimir stepped out of line. The SSG requires advanced weaponry to combat threats like Garp and his pirate allies, Casimir said evenly. G5 provides necessary isolation for testing. Indeed. Kizaru smiled his infuriating smile. Well, don't let me interrupt your preparations. I look forward to seeing the results tomorrow. After the admiral left, Casimir immediately picked up a secured den mushi. Accelerate the timeline, he ordered without preamble. Move everything from G5 tonight. The Admiralty is taking too much interest. The voice on the other end sounded nervous. Sir, we need at least another week to stabilize tonight, Casimir repeated coldly. I'll take responsibility for any complications. He hung up and returned to the window, watching Kizaru's lanky figure crossing the courtyard below. The Admiral was a problem, too perceptive, too connected to the old guard. But soon, if everything went according to plan, such obstacles would be removed. First Garp, though. The hero turned traitor. The symbol that needed to be destroyed before the new era of absolute justice could truly begin. Dawn broke over Fist Island with a blood-red sky. Garp stood on the shore, watching as 3 ships prepared to depart in different directions. Remember the plan, he told the assembled group of allies. We're not trying to win every battle, just disrupt their operations enough to protect our people and gather intelligence. The first ship would carry Luffy and half of his Straw Hat crew to Fishman Island. The second would take Ace and a contingent of former Whitebeard pirates to Water 7. The third, with Sabo and Revolutionary Army operatives, would head for Drum Kingdom. What about Amazon Lily? Koala asked, adjusting her gloves. The Revolutionary Army's martial arts expert had become a key coordinator between the various factions working with Garp. I'll handle that personally, Garp said. Hancock's been a crucial ally. I won't leave her people undefended. And G5? This came from a tall, lean man with curly black hair and a sleep mask pushed up on his forehead. Former Admiral Akiji had appeared on Fist Island 2 months earlier, having abandoned the Marines shortly after Marineford. His arrival had been met with suspicion, particularly from Ace, but Garp had vouched for him. Since then, Kuzan, as he preferred to be called now, had become one of their most valuable sources of marine intelligence. G5 isn't on the official target list, Garp frowned. It wouldn't be, Kuzan replied. But my sources say Casimir has something special brewing there. Something he's kept off the books, even from Sengoku. Garp stroked his beard thoughtfully. You think it's a priority target? I think it's the real target, Kuzan affirmed. The rest are distractions. Then why didn't your source just tell us what's at G5? Ace demanded. Kuzan shrugged. Because they don't know. Whatever Casimir's doing there, he's keeping it compartmentalized. Only his inner circle has the full picture. Garp made a swift decision. Change of plans. Luffy, Ace, you still go to your assigned targets. Sabo, redirect to G5 instead of Drum Kingdom. Kuzan and I will handle Amazon Lily, then reinforce whoever needs it most. I don't like splitting our forces this thin, Koala cautioned. Neither do I, Garp admitted. But we don't have a choice. We can't ignore any of these threats. As the groups made final preparations, Garp pulled his grandsons aside. Listen carefully, he said, his voice unusually serious. If you encounter Casimir, do not engage. Withdraw immediately and contact me. Understood? But Grandpa, Luffy protested, I'm much stronger now. No, Garp cut him off. This isn't about strength, Luffy. Casimir fights differently than anyone you've faced. He studies his opponents, learns their patterns, then exploits their weaknesses without mercy. He doesn't fight fair, he fights to win, at any cost. So do I, Ace said darkly. Not like this, Garp insisted. Casimir once captured a pirate captain by poisoning an entire town's water supply, knowing the pirate would come to help. Hundreds died, but he got his target. That's who we're dealing with. That sobered them. Even Luffy's normal enthusiasm dimmed. Promise me, Garp demanded. No heroics. Complete your missions and get out. They nodded reluctantly. Good, Garp said, his stern expression softening. I didn't kill an admiral and become the world's most wanted man just to lose you to Akainu's attack dog. The ships departed within the hour, each taking a different route to avoid being tracked. Garp and Kazan remained on shore, watching until the sails disappeared over the horizon. Think they'll stick to the plan? Kazan asked. Not a chance, Garp snorted. That's why we have contingencies. They headed toward their own vessel, a modified marine ship that Kazan had liberated during his departure from the Corps. Its exterior had been altered to resemble a merchant vessel, while the interior contained state-of-the-art navigation and combat systems. You really think Casimir will show himself? Kazan asked as they prepared to cast off. He'll want to oversee at least one operation personally, Garp reasoned. Probably whichever one he considers most important. G5, then. Most likely. Which means Sabo will have the hardest job. Garp frowned. I should have gone myself. Sabo has the entire revolutionary intelligence network backing him, Kazan reminded him. And you're needed at Amazon Lily. The Kujo won't trust anyone else. Garp nodded reluctantly. As they sailed away from Fist Island, he cast one last look at the base they'd built over the past months. Something told him they wouldn't be returning anytime soon. Fishman Island shimmered beneath its protective bubble, coral structures, and underwater forests creating a landscape unlike anything on the surface world. Despite the early hour, the main square was already filled with fishmen and merfolk going about their daily business. Hidden in an underwater cave several miles from the main island, Luffy peered through a spyglass, watching marine ships descend through the massive current leading from the surface. 10 ships, he reported to Jinbe, who floated beside him. Just like Grandpa said. They're not bothering with subtlety, Jinbe observed grimly. This is a show of force. Since Marineford, Jinbe had officially joined Luffy's crew, though he divided his time between the Straw Hats and protecting his home island. Now, with Marines approaching, his first priority was clear. The king has already implemented the evacuation plan for the most vulnerable districts, Jinbe continued. But we can't move everyone in time. We don't need to, Luffy said, surprising Jinbe with his unusually strategic thinking. Grandpa said they're not here to hurt regular people. They want to flush out anyone helping us. And how do we prevent that? Luffy grinned, that familiar reckless expression that somehow inspired both confidence and concern in those around him. We give them something else to worry about. Inside the bubble surrounding Fishman Island, Marines were already disembarking from their ships, forming orderly units under the command of Vice Admiral Momonga. Citizens watched nervously as the soldiers began systematic searches of buildings. Remember, Momonga instructed his officers, we're looking for any evidence of contact with Monkey D, Garp or his associates. Check communication logs, recent visitors, unusual shipments. Sir, a Marine captain approached, saluting. The Fishman King requests your presence at the palace. He says he wishes to cooperate fully. Momonga nodded. Good. Captain Tashigi, continue overseeing the search. I'll meet with the king. As the vice admiral headed toward the palace with a small security detail, the remaining marines spread throughout the districts, checking ships, examining logbooks, questioning merchants about recent trading partners. Captain Tashigi supervised from the central plaza, referring occasionally to intelligence reports. Focus on the southeast district, she ordered through a baby den mushi. Intelligence suggests sympathizers may be concentrated there. Marines. The shout echoed across the plaza, so loud it momentarily halted all activity. Every head turned toward its source. Monkey D. Luffy stood atop a coral formation, hands on his hips, that distinctive straw hat shadowing his eyes. I heard you guys were looking for me, he called out, his voice carrying easily in the sudden silence. Well, here I am. Tashiji's eyes widened. Straw Hat Luffy. Here. She immediately raised her Den Mushi. All units. Priority target spotted in the central plaza. Converge immediately. An alert Vice Admiral Momonga. Marines rushed toward the plaza from all directions, abandoning their search operations. Luffy didn't move, watching calmly as they surrounded him, weapons drawn. Straw Hat Luffy. Tashigi called up to him. You're under arrest for piracy, for your role in the Marineford incident, and for aiding the traitor Monkey D. Garp. Luffy tilted his head. Grandpa's not a traitor. He just finally picked the right side. Surrender peacefully, Tashigi continued, ignoring his comment. You're surrounded. Luffy's grin widened. Am I? From every direction, figures emerged from hiding places, from behind buildings, beneath the water's surface, even from within the coral formations themselves. The Straw Hat Pirates, the Fishman District Fighters, and dozens of fishmen and merfolk who had volunteered to defend their island. What is this? Tashigi demanded. This, said Jinbe, rising from the water directly behind the marine captain, is Fishman Island, showing you who we stand with. Chaos erupted. The Marines, caught off guard by the ambush, struggled to regroup as attackers came at them from all sides. What had begun as a simple search operation devolved into a full-scale battle throughout the island. At the palace, Vice Admiral Momonga received the alert just as he was sitting down with King Neptune. Straw Hat Luffy is here, he asked sharply, rising to his feet. You assured me your island wasn't harboring fugitives, King Neptune. The massive Fishman King shrugged his massive shoulders. I said no such thing. I merely offered to discuss the situation with you. It's hardly my fault if pirates choose to visit our island while we're talking. Momonga's eyes narrowed. This was a deliberate distraction. Perhaps, Neptune acknowledged. But now you face a choice, Vice Admiral. You can continue this fruitless search and fight enemies who know this underwater terrain far better than you do, or you can withdraw with minimal casualties. The Marines don't retreat, Momonga stated flatly. Then the Marines will lose many good soldiers today, Neptune replied, his normally jovial face hardening. Fishman Island has remained neutral in many conflicts, but we have our limits. Your presence here, searching our homes, questioning our people, all because of their supposed connection to a man who simply chose his family over a corrupt system. It tells us everything we need to know about which side deserves our support. Back in the plaza, Luffy was in his element, bouncing between groups of Marines, his rubber limbs stretching to strike multiple opponents simultaneously. The Straw Hats worked with practiced coordination around him, Zoro cutting through Marine weapons with his three-sword style, Sanji's flaming kick sending soldiers flying, Robin's multiple arms restraining groups of attackers. Just like old times, eh? Sanji called to Zoro as they briefly fought back to back. Except now we're helping Luffy's crazy grandfather instead of just Luffy, Zoro grunted, deflecting a barrage of bullets. The craziness runs in the family, Sanji observed, launching himself into a spinning kick that cleared a circle around them. Tashigi found herself facing Jinbe, her sword drawn but her confidence wavering. The former warlord's reputation was legendary, and she had witnessed his power firsthand at Marineford. I have no wish to harm you, Captain, Jinbe said, his stance relaxed but ready. But I will defend this island. You're aiding known criminals, Tashigi replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The law, the law. Jinbe interrupted, his voice rumbling with anger. Was it the law when the world government sanctioned the hunting of fishmen? When they turned a blind eye to slavery? When they executed people for the crime of being born with the wrong bloodline? Tashigi had no answer for that. Her grip on her sword tightened, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. The battle continued for nearly an hour, with the Marines gradually being pushed back toward their ships. Despite their numbers and training, they were at a severe disadvantage in the underwater environment. When Vice Admiral Momonga finally emerged from the palace, he quickly assessed the situation. "Signal the retreat," he ordered, surprising his subordinates. "We've gathered enough intelligence." "Sir," an officer questioned. "We haven't completed the search parameters that Vice Admiral Casimir, I said retreat," Momonga repeated firmly. "This operation was compromised from the start. We're cutting our losses." As the Marines fell back to their ships, Luffy stood watching from atop the same coral formation, now considerably more battered. "Hui," he shouted after them. "Tell that Casimir guy something from me." Despite himself, Momonga paused, looking back. "Tell him my grandpa made the right choice." Luffy called, his voice carrying across the water. "And if he wants to find us, he should stop bullying our friends and come face us himself." Momonga didn't respond, but as he boarded his ship, there was a thoughtful expression on his face. The operation had failed in its primary objective. They had found no concrete evidence of Garp's recent presence on Fishman Island, but they had confirmed something perhaps more significant, the growing network of allies willing to fight for the former Marine hero and his family. As the Marine ships ascended toward the surface, Jinbe approached Luffy. "That went according to plan," the Fishman observed. "Perhaps too well." Luffy nodded, suddenly serious. "Yeah. They gave up too easily." "You think this was a diversion? That their real target is elsewhere?" "That's what Grandpa thought might happen." Luffy adjusted his straw hat. "We need to warn the others." Water 7, the city of water and shipwrights, had transformed significantly since the Enies Lobby incident years earlier. The Galley Law Company had expanded, now incorporating several smaller shipbuilding operations, and Iceberg's influence had grown beyond the city to encompass much of the surrounding region. It was this influence that now served as both target and shield as Marine ships surrounded the city's main harbor. "They're being a lot more careful here than I expected," Ace observed from his hiding place atop one of the city's iconic water fountains. "No force entry, no searches. Just a formal request to speak with Iceberg." Beside him, Marco nodded. The former 1st Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates had joined Ace on this mission, one of several Whitebeard veterans who had remained allied with Ace after their captain's death at Marineford. "Iceberg has too many powerful clients," Marco explained. "The Marines can't just raid Water 7 without serious political consequences. So instead they're trying diplomacy." Ace sounded skeptical. "That doesn't match what Gramps told us about Casimir." "Which means this isn't Casimir's main target," Marco concluded. "We're facing a secondary unit, following standard protocols." Below them, in Iceberg's office, the meeting between the shipwright mayor and Vice Admiral Doberman was proceeding with superficial politeness masking obvious tension. "I assure you, Vice Admiral, Water 7 maintains strict neutrality," Iceberg was saying. "We build ships for anyone who can pay, Marines, merchants, and yes, occasionally those who might be classified as pirates. We're not concerned with your general business practices," Doberman replied coldly. "Our intelligence suggests you've had direct contact with Monkey D. Garp within the last 3 months." Iceberg's expression revealed nothing. "The former Vice Admiral has ordered ships from Galley Law in the past. As have many high-ranking Marines. I fail to see how this is relevant to your current investigation." "Don't play games with me," Doberman snapped, his patience wearing thin. "Garp is a traitor to the world government and the Marines. Anyone harboring or assisting him faces the same charges." "Is that a threat, Vice Admiral?" Iceberg asked mildly. "It's the law." Iceberg sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Very well. Yes, Garp contacted us approximately 2 months ago. He commissioned a ship, paid in full, I might add, and we built it to his specifications." Doberman leaned forward eagerly. "Where was it delivered?" "It wasn't," Iceberg replied simply. "He never came to collect it." Frustration crossed Doberman's face. "You expect me to believe that?" A man with a 5 billion berry bounty on his head prepays for a custom ship and then simply abandons it. Iceberg shrugged. Believe what you wish. The ship remains in our secondary dock, unclaimed. You're welcome to inspect it. Doberman studied Iceberg's face, looking for any sign of deception. Finding none that he could detect, he nodded curtly. I'll take you up on that offer. Now. Meanwhile, Ace and Marco had moved to a new position, closer to the secondary docks mentioned in the conversation, which they had overheard through a den mushy planted by one of their allies within Galila. There's definitely no ship, Ace muttered. This is a trap for the Marines. Or for us, Marco cautioned. Remember, we don't know if they're aware of our presence. The sound of multiple footsteps approaching made them press deeper into the shadows of the large shipping crates concealing them. Iceberg led Doberman and a contingent of Marines into the massive dock facility, which appeared mostly empty except for a large shape beneath a tarp at the far end. There it is, Iceberg announced. The Fist of Freedom, as he named it. Quite an impressive vessel, if I do say so myself. Doberman approached the tarp suspiciously, his hand on his sword. With a swift motion, he yanked the covering away to reveal a ship. An actual, completed ship, with the name Fist of Freedom painted on its bow. Ace and Marco exchanged surprised glances. That was definitely not part of Gramps' plan, Ace whispered. Doberman circled the vessel, examining it carefully. This is a warship, he observed. Modified marine design, but with significant enhancements. As I said, built to his specifications, Iceberg confirmed. Garp was quite clear about what he wanted. Fast, durable, with multiple escape mechanisms and hidden compartments. Why are you telling me this? Doberman demanded. You're essentially admitting to aiding a wanted criminal. Iceberg smiled thinly. Building ships isn't a crime, Vice Admiral. What the eventual owner does with them is beyond my control. Besides, as I mentioned, Garp never took possession. The ship remains Galila property. Doberman wasn't satisfied. I'm impounding this vessel as evidence. And I'll need complete records of all communication between Garp and Galila. Of course, Iceberg agreed, surprisingly amenable. Khalifa has prepared copies of all relevant documents. Though I should warn you, the ship has some unusual security features. As if on cue, a Marine who had climbed aboard the ship triggered something, and suddenly alarms blared throughout the dock. The ship's deck plates slid open, revealing what appeared to be cannon barrels, but instead of firing projectiles, they released a dense, rapidly expanding foam that engulfed several Marines. What is this? Doberman shouted, drawing his sword. A non-lethal security system, Iceberg explained, backing away. The foam hardens on contact with air. Don't worry, it dissolves after about 6 hours. Chaos broke out as more Marines rushed toward the ship, only to trigger additional traps. Nets dropped from the ceiling, water jets erupted from hidden pipes, and the dock floor became inexplicably slippery. In the confusion, Ace nudged Marco. Time for Phase 2. Marco nodded. Just like we planned, you are. While the Marines struggled with the ship's defenses, Ace and Marco split up, moving swiftly through the shadows toward opposite ends of the dock facility. Each carried a small package, which they placed at strategic points before retreating to a safe distance. Doberman, now thoroughly enraged, grabbed Iceberg by the front of his shirt. This is deliberate obstruction of marine operations. You'll be arrested for. A series of explosions cut him off, not massive, destructive blasts, but precisely targeted detonations that collapsed key support beams, causing a chain reaction throughout the dock. Water began pouring in from multiple breaches. The dock is flooding, a Marine shouted. We need to evacuate. What about the ship? Another called. Leave it. Doberman ordered. This entire operation is compromised. As Marines scrambled to escape the rapidly flooding dock, Iceberg somehow slipped away from Doberman in the confusion. He made his way calmly to a predetermined exit, where Polly waited with a small boat. "Everything go according to plan, sir?" Polly asked as they pushed away from the crumbling dock. "More or less," Iceberg replied, watching the Marines evacuate. "Though our visitors seemed unusually easy to distract." "That's because we're not their real target," said a voice from the shadows of the boat. Ace emerged, grinning. "Thanks for the assist, by the way. That ship was a nice touch." "Garp paid for it fair and square," Iceberg shrugged. "Even if it was designed specifically as bait for this exact scenario." "Your grandfather thinks of everything, Marco commented, landing lightly on the boat's prow, his phoenix wings fading. "Not everything," Ace replied, his expression growing serious. "If the Marines committed so few resources here, it means they're concentrating their forces elsewhere. We need to warn the others." In the frozen landscape of Drum Kingdom, now known as the Sakura Kingdom, the situation was developing very differently. Unlike the other targets, no Marine ships had appeared offshore, no troops had landed on the beaches. Instead, a single Marine vessel had docked at the main port, and a small delegation led by Captain Hina had politely requested an audience with Dr. Kureha, the kingdom's acting ruler in Princess Vivi's frequent absences. "This is wrong," Sabo muttered, watching from the castle window as Hina's delegation approached. "There should be a full strike force, not a diplomatic mission." Koala, who had joined Sabo instead of going to G5 as originally planned, nodded in agreement. "Either they know we redirected here, or this was never a real target," Sabo finished. "Just a feint to spread our forces thin." Dr. Kureha entered the room, looking remarkably spry despite her advanced age. "Our guests will be here in 5 minutes. You two should make yourselves scarce." "We can handle a Marine captain," Koala assured her. "It's not about whether you can handle her," Kureha snapped. "It's about not showing our hand too early. Now hide." "I didn't live this long by being stupid." Reluctantly, Sabo and Koala concealed themselves in an adjoining room, where they could overhear the coming conversation. They didn't have to wait long before Hina was announced and entered Kureha's receiving room. "Doctor," Hina greeted formally. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Skip the pleasantries," Kureha replied bluntly. "What does the Marine Corps want with a neutral medical kingdom?" Hina didn't seem offended by the brusque response. "Information, primarily. We have reason to believe you've had contact with Monkey D. Garp." "Of course I have," Kureha snorted. "I've known that muscle-headed idiot for 50 years. What of it?" "Recent contact," Hina clarified. "Define recent." "Within the last 6 months. Kureha cackled. 6 months is recent. At my age, anything less than a decade is practically yesterday." Hina's patience was clearly being tested. "Doctor, this isn't a joke. Harboring or assisting Garp is a serious crime." "Is treating the wounded a crime now?" Kureha countered, her amusement vanishing. "Because that's what I do. I'm a doctor. If Garp or anyone else came to me injured, I would treat them. That's my duty." "So you admit he came here?" "I admit nothing of the sort," Kureha retorted. "I'm making a statement of principle. Now, do you have any actual evidence that Garp has been here, or are you just fishing?" In the adjoining room, Sabo and Koala exchanged looks. The conversation wasn't revealing anything useful, and something still felt off about the entire situation. "We need more information," Sabo whispered. "This is too small a force for a serious operation." Koala nodded. "I'll contact our network, see if there's any unusual Marine movement elsewhere." She slipped away while Sabo continued listening to the increasingly tense conversation between Hina and Kureha. Neither woman was giving ground, and it was becoming clear that Hina didn't actually have any concrete evidence of Garp's presence in Drum Kingdom. She was, indeed, fishing for information. After about 20 minutes, Koala returned, her expression grave. "We were right," she whispered urgently. "This is a distraction. All the major operations, Fishman Island, Water 7, Amazon Lily, they're using minimal forces. But G5? Massive deployment. At least 20 battleships and some kind of special transport vessels. Sabo's eyes widened. We need to get there now. There's more, Koala continued. Our agent inside Marine headquarters just reported that Vice Admiral Casimir personally departed for G5 last night. Whatever's happening there, he wants to oversee it himself. What about Luffy and Ace? And Garp? Already sending warnings, but communications are spotty. The Marines are jamming Den mushy signals around all operation areas. Sabo made a quick decision. We need to move. Now. Whatever's at G5, it's clearly Casimir's main objective. They slipped out of the castle undetected, leaving Dr. Kureha to continue her verbal sparring with Captain Hina. Their ship was hidden in a cove several miles from the main port, crewed by a small team of revolutionary operatives. Set course for G5, Sabo ordered as they boarded. Maximum speed. And keep trying to contact the others. As the ship pulled away from Drum Kingdom's shores, Sabo stood at the bow, his expression troubled. He had a sinking feeling that they were already too late, that whatever Casimir had planned at G5 was already in motion. Amazon Lily remained one of the most isolated and protected islands in the Grand Line, its natural barriers and the Kuja pirates' fearsome reputation keeping most intruders at bay. But even this sanctuary wasn't immune to the long reach of the Marines. When Garp and Kazan arrived, they found the island already on high alert, with Kuja warriors positioned along the shoreline and Hancock's sisters organizing defensive formations. They haven't attacked yet, Sandersonia reported as Garp and Kazan were escorted to the palace. But 10 Marine ships have formed a blockade around the island. They're just waiting. Psychological warfare, Garp grunted. Standard intimidation tactic. Casimir's letting the anticipation build. In the palace throne room, Boa Hancock paced impatiently, her legendary beauty somewhat diminished by the worry etched on her face. Garp, she acknowledged when he entered. Have you heard from Luffy? Is he safe? Last I heard, he was heading to Fishman Island as planned, Garp replied. But marine jamming signals are making communication difficult. This is my fault, Hancock said, anger flashing in her eyes. They're targeting Amazon Lily because I helped you and Luffy escape after Marineford. They're targeting everyone who ever helped me, Garp corrected her. The world government can't afford to let my defection go unpunished. It sets too dangerous an example. What's their game here? Kazan asked, nodding toward the window where the Marine ships were visible in the distance. Why surround the island but not attack? Before anyone could answer, a Kuja warrior burst into the throne room. Empress. A small marine vessel approaches under a flag of truce. They're requesting to send a single representative to speak with you. Hancock's eyes narrowed. Who is it? They wouldn't say. Just that they bring a message from Marine headquarters. Garp and Kazan exchanged concerned glances. It could be a trap, Kazan warned. Of course it's a trap, Hancock replied dismissively. But refusing to even hear them out makes us appear weak or guilty. Allow them to send one representative, female only, unarmed, and thoroughly searched before entering my presence. The messenger relayed these conditions, and shortly thereafter, a Marine officer was escorted into the throne room under heavy guard. She was young, maybe in her mid-20s, with short-cropped hair and a serious expression that showed no intimidation despite being surrounded by hostile Kuja warriors. State your business, Hancock demanded imperiously. The officer's gaze moved past Hancock to where Garp and Kazan stood. A flicker of recognition crossed her face before she composed herself. I am Lieutenant Commander Isako, she announced formally. I bring a message from Vice Admiral Casimir to Boa Hancock, Empress of Amazon Lily. Speak, then. Isako straightened. The message is this: surrender Monkey D. Garp and the former Admiral Kazan immediately, or face the consequences of harboring traitors to the world government. You have 1 hour to comply. Hancock laughed, the sound both beautiful and cold. Is that all? Your Vice Admiral sends a child to deliver threats to the Pirate Empress. If the insult bothered Isako, she didn't show it. Vice Admiral Casimir also instructed me to inform you that should you refuse, your status as a warlord will be immediately revoked, and Amazon Lily's protection under the world government will end. My protection? Hancock's voice dropped dangerously. I need no protection from men. Perhaps not, Isako agreed. But what about protection for your secret? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Hancock's expression froze. What secret? She asked, too calmly. The one on your back, Isako replied softly. The mark of the celestial dragons. Vice Admiral Casimir has obtained records from Mariehua documenting your time as a slave. If you do not comply with his demands, this information will be broadcast to the world. Garp stepped forward, unable to remain silent any longer. That's low, even for Casimir. Isako turned to him. Vice Admiral, Garp. The Marine Corps gave you everything. Your rank, your reputation, your legacy. And you threw it all away for pirates. I threw it away for family, Garp corrected her. Something Casimir wouldn't understand. He understands justice, Isako replied, her voice hardening. True justice, not the compromise you settled for. He taught us that justice must be absolute, or it isn't justice at all. Us? Kazan picked up on the word. You're one of his special units. Isako nodded. I'm proud to serve under his command in the SSG. And what exactly is the SSG planning at G5? Garp asked bluntly. For the first time, Isako looked uncertain. I'm not at liberty to discuss operational details. Because you don't know, Garp guessed. Casimir compartmentalizes information. Classic tactic for someone planning something even his own people might object to. You're wrong, Isako insisted, though with less conviction. Vice Admiral Casimir is restoring the Marine Corps to what it should be, a force of absolute justice, uncorrupted by sentiment or politics. Is that what he told you? Kazan asked mildly. Interesting recruitment pitch. Hancock had heard enough. Take this message back to your Vice Admiral, she commanded. Amazon Lily does not bow to threats. We do not surrender guests who have sought our protection. And if he dares to attack this island, he will learn why the Kuja are feared throughout the world. Isako's expression remained neutral. I'll convey your refusal. As she was escorted out, Garp turned to Hancock. You shouldn't have done that. We can leave, find another. No, Hancock cut him off. I made my choice when I helped you and Luffy escape Marineford. I won't change course now because of threats. They'll attack, Kazan warned. And they'll use your past against you. Let them, Hancock said, her voice like steel. I've survived worse than marine threats. Less than 30 minutes after Isako's departure, the marine ships began to move. Instead of approaching the island, however, they maintained their distance while launching a series of smaller, faster vessels. Scout ships? Sandersonia guessed, watching through a spyglass. No, Garp realized with growing dread. Bombardment positions. They're creating a perimeter. Sure enough, the smaller vessels formed a ring around the island, just beyond the range of the Kuja archers. From the deck of each, what appeared to be cannons were raised, but unlike any cannons Garp had seen before. Those aren't standard marine weapons, he muttered. Kazan took the spyglass, his expression darkening as he studied the devices. They look like prototypes I saw in Vegapunk's lab before I left. Some kind of concentrated seastone delivery system. What does that mean? Hancock demanded. It means they're not planning to invade, Kazan explained grimly. They're going to bombard the island with sea stone particles, saturate the entire area. For devil fruit users like you and your sisters. We'd be helpless, Marigold realized. Everyone to shelter. Hancock ordered immediately. All devil fruit users to the central caverns. Archers, prepare to fire on those vessels. But before the Kuja warriors could reach their positions, a voice boomed across the water, amplified by what must have been an extremely powerful Den Mushi. Attention citizens of Amazon Lily. The voice was female, Lieutenant Commander Isako again. By order of Vice Admiral Casimir, acting under authority of the world government, Boa Hancock is hereby stripped of her title as Warlord of the Sea. A collective gasp went up from the Kuja assembled on the shore. Furthermore, the following information is now being broadcast to all marine vessels and allied nations. What followed was a detailed account of Hancock's past, her capture by slave traders, her years as a slave to the celestial dragons, the circumstances of her escape. The voice was clinical, emotionless, as it stripped away the secret Hancock had protected for so many years. Is this their attack? Sandersonia asked, confused. Words. No, Garp said, watching Hancock's face carefully. This is just the beginning. They're trying to break her spirit before they break her body. But if the Marines expected Hancock to crumble under the exposure of her past, they had severely misjudged the pirate empress. As the announcement continued, detailing the most humiliating aspects of her enslavement, Hancock's expression didn't show shame or fear, only rage, building with each word until she seemed to vibrate with it. Enough, she said finally, her voice deceptively soft. I've heard enough. She stepped forward, to the edge of the palace balcony overlooking the shore, where her people watched her with concern. Kuja warriors, she called, her voice carrying without need of amplification. You have heard the truth of my past. I was a slave. My sisters were slaves. We bear the marks of our captivity even now. She turned, and for the first time publicly, revealed the hated mark on her back, the hoof of the flying dragon that branded all who served the celestial dragons. I have hidden this from you not out of shame, but to protect you from the world government's vengeance. But no more. If they think exposing my past will weaken me, they do not know the Kuja. A roar of approval went up from her warriors. Far from being demoralized by the revelation, they seemed galvanized by their empress's defiance. Prepare for battle. Hancock commanded. Show these men why Amazon Lily has remained unconquered for 1,000 years. As the Kuja rushed to battle stations, Garp watched with new respect. Casimir miscalculated badly here. Don't underestimate him, Kazan cautioned. This psychological attack might have been a feint. The real threat is still those weapons. He was proven right moments later when the strange cannons on the marine vessels began to glow with an eerie blue light. There was no explosive sound when they fired, just a high-pitched whine as projectiles arced high into the air above Amazon Lily. Take cover. Garp shouted, but it was too late. The projectiles detonated high above the island, releasing not explosive force but clouds of fine, glittering dust that began to settle over everything. Wherever it touched, Kuja warriors suddenly staggered, their strength visibly draining. Sea stone dust, Kazan confirmed grimly. Weaponized and dispersed over a wide area. This is what Vegapunk has been working on. Devil fruit users throughout the island began collapsing as the particles made contact with their skin. Hancock and her sisters, despite their strength, were not immune. They fell to their knees, their powers neutralized by the insidious dust. Get them inside. Garp ordered, helping Hancock to her feet. Unlike the devil fruit users, he was unaffected by the sea stone. Kazan, can you create an ice dome to block the dust? Kazan was already showing signs of weakness, but he nodded grimly. With a massive effort, he activated his powers, creating a thick sheet of ice that spread outward from the palace, forming a protective barrier against the falling particles. It won't last, he warned, his voice strained. The dust will eventually penetrate, and my powers are already weakening. It just needs to last long enough, Garp replied, his mind racing. We need to take out those weapons. How? We can't get close enough without being exposed to the dust. Garp's eyes narrowed as he studied the marine vessels through a spyglass. We don't need to get close. We just need to disrupt their formation. He turned to the Kuja warriors who remained functional, those without devil fruit powers. I need your strongest archers and your most accurate cannons. While Kazan maintained the ice shield with increasing difficulty, Garp organized a counterattack. The Kuja's legendary archery skills would be key. If they could hit the marine vessels from extreme range, they might be able to disrupt the seastone bombardment long enough to mount a more substantive defense. Aim for the weapon systems first, Garp instructed. Then the ship's rudder. We don't need to sink them, just disable their ability to maintain the bombardment perimeter. The Kuja archers took position along the highest points of the island, protected by Kazan's ice dome. At Garp's signal, they let fly, hundreds of arrows arcing toward the distant marine vessels with impossible accuracy. Many missed, the extreme range testing even the Kuja's legendary skills. But enough found their targets to create chaos among the marine fleet. Several of the specialized seastone cannons were damaged, and 2 ships lost steering control, drifting out of their carefully coordinated positions. It's working, a Kuja warrior shouted as gaps appeared in the bombardment pattern. Not for long, Garp cautioned. They'll adapt. We need something more decisive. That's when a den mushi in Garp's pocket began to crackle with an incoming transmission, somehow breaking through the marine jamming. Gramps. Gramps, can you hear me? Luffy? Garp grabbed the snail. Where are you? We're approaching Amazon Lily now. We saw the marine ships. Hang on, we're coming. Sure enough, a ship appeared on the horizon, not the Thousand Sunny, but a sleek vessel painted in Whitebeard pirates' colors. That's not just Luffy, Kazan observed, relief evident in his voice despite his strained condition. Looks like some of our forces are converging. The approaching ship moved with incredible speed, expertly navigating through the marine blockade before they could reposition to intercept. As it drew closer, Garp could make out figures on the deck, Luffy, of course, but also Ace, Marco, Jinbe, and several others. How did they find us? Hancock asked weakly, the seastone dust still affecting her despite being inside. Emergency rendezvous protocol, Garp explained. If any of our teams confirmed their target was a diversion, they were to redirect to support the others. Looks like they all reached the same conclusion. These attacks are just to divide our forces while something bigger happens at G5. The arrival of reinforcements changed the dynamic of the battle. The Marines, caught between defending against the Kuja's long-range attacks and addressing the new threat charging directly into their formation, began to lose cohesion. Luffy, Ace, and their allies wasted no time joining the fight, targeting the ships deploying the seastone dust. With their devil fruit powers still active, having not yet entered the contaminated area, they tore through the marine vessels with devastating efficiency. Garp. The amplified voice of Lieutenant Commander Isako echoed across the water again. Surrender now and we'll withdraw. Continue fighting, and we'll be forced to employ extreme measures. What extreme measures? Hancock demanded, struggling to her feet despite the seastone's effects. They've already used their secret weapon. No, Garp said slowly, a cold realization dawning. The dust was just the setup. It was never meant to be decisive on its own. He grabbed the den mushi again. Luffy. Ace. Get back to your ship now. They're about to. His warning came too late. From the largest marine battleship, positioned farthest from the island, a different kind of projectile was launched, larger, heavier, with a distinctive whistling sound as it arced through the air. Buster Call. Garp shouted in horror. They're launching a targeted Buster Call. The projectile detonated over Amazon Lily with catastrophic force, not targeting the populated areas, but the forested mountains that provided the island's natural protection. Massive explosions tore through the landscape, triggering landslides and fissures that threatened to reshape the island itself. They're trying to make the island uninhabitable, Kazan realized. Not to kill everyone, but to force evacuation, permanent displacement. Standard Buster Call Protocol, Garp confirmed grimly. Destroy infrastructure, not people. Create refugees, not martyrs. More projectiles followed, each striking with precision to maximize environmental damage while minimizing direct casualties. It was destruction with a purpose, a calculated effort to render Amazon Lily unlivable without the negative publicity of a massacre. Hancock watched in horror as her homeland was systematically devastated. We have to stop them. We will, Garp promised. He turned to Kazan. Can you still fight? The former admiral nodded, though he looked pale from the seastone exposure. Enough. Good. Because we're taking the fight to them. Garp pointed to the command ship at the center of the Marine fleet. That's where Isako is coordinating from. Take it out, and the attack will lose cohesion. While Luffy, Ace, and their allies continued engaging the perimeter ships, Garp and Kazan commandeered a small Kuja vessel. With most of the Marines' attention focused on the more obvious threats, they slipped through the blockade, approaching the command ship from its blind spot. Just like old times, Kazan commented as they prepared to board. You and me on some crazy infiltration. Except we were usually boarding pirate ships, not Marine vessels, Garp replied. Details, details. They boarded with minimal resistance, most of the crew was focused on the battle raging around them. Making their way to the bridge, they encountered increasingly alert opposition, but between Garp's overwhelming physical power and Kazan's ice abilities, gradually returning as they moved away from the seastone-contaminated area, none could stand in their way for long. When they finally burst onto the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Isako was in the middle of issuing orders for another barrage against Amazon Lily. She spun to face them, eyes widening in surprise. Impossible. You shouldn't be able to move in a seastone field. Garp finished for her. I don't have a devil fruit, remember? One of the advantages of good old-fashioned physical training. Isako drew her sword. It doesn't matter. You're too late. The Buster Call has been authorized. Even if you take this ship, the others will continue until Amazon Lily is uninhabitable. Unless they receive orders to stand down, Kazan countered, freezing the feet of the Marine officers reaching for weapons. From you. I'll never give that order, Isako declared. You don't have to, Garp said. We just need your authentication codes. Before Isako could respond, the ship rocked violently as something massive struck it from the side. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. What was that? Kazan demanded, grabbing a nearby console for balance. A Marine communications officer, more afraid of Garp than of disobeying his commander, answered, Fire Fist Ace and Phoenix Marco are attacking our engines, sir. Perfect timing, Garp grinned. Turning back to Isako, his expression hardened. Last chance. Order your fleet to stand down. Or what? Isako challenged, though her confidence was clearly wavering as the ship continued to shudder under attack. You'll kill me. Like you killed Admiral Akainu. Prove everything Casimir says about you being a traitor to justice. No, Garp said quietly. I won't kill you. But I will stop this attack, with or without your cooperation. He moved to the ship's communications array, shouldering aside the officers attempting to block him. With practiced ease, he input a series of commands, overriding the security protocols with administrative codes. Your codes won't work anymore, Isako said. They were all changed after your defection. Maybe, Garp agreed. But Sengoku's codes weren't. And I've known his personal override for 30 years. Isako's face paled as Garp accessed the fleet-wide communication system. His voice boomed across all Marine vessels engaged in the operation. Attention all Marine ships. This is former Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp. Your commander has been captured, and your flagship is under our control. He paused, letting that sink in. Look to your east. On cue, 3 more ships appeared on the horizon, revolutionary vessels, heavily armed and moving fast. You are outmatched and outmaneuvered. Withdraw now, and you'll be allowed to leave with your wounded. Continue this attack, and none of your ships will return to G5. Silence fell across the radio channels as Marine captains considered their options. Isako, despite being restrained by Kazan, managed to activate her personal Den Mushi. Disregard that order, she shouted. Continue the operation as planned. This is a direct command from Vice Admiral Casimir. Casimir isn't here, Garp countered, still broadcasting. And he sent you on a suicide mission while he focuses on G5. Ask yourselves, is this really worth dying for? To make an island of women homeless? Is that the justice you signed up to uphold? More silence. Then, one by one, the marine vessels began to break formation, turning away from Amazon Lily. No. Isako struggled against Kazan's ice restraints. You can't do this. The operation has failed, Garp finished for her. Just like Casimir's operations at Fishman Island and Water 7. Because he spread his forces too thin, focused too much on G5. G5, Kazan repeated thoughtfully. What's so important there that Casimir would risk operations like this? Isako's expression closed off. I don't know. But you suspect something, Garp pressed. Don't you? Something about these prototypes you're using. Something about Casimir's special project. I follow orders, Isako replied stiffly. That's what good Marines do. No, Garp said, his voice gentle now. Good Marines protect people. They uphold true justice, not blind obedience. Whatever Casimir is planning at G5, I don't think it's about justice at all. Before Isako could respond, a massive explosion rocked the ship, bigger than the previous impacts. Ace and Marco had apparently decided to accelerate the process of disabling the vessel. Time to go, Kazan announced, releasing Isako but freezing the Den Mushi in her hand. This ship won't stay afloat much longer. Garp nodded, then turned back to Isako one last time. Think about what real justice means, Lieutenant Commander. And when you figure it out, maybe we'll meet again, on the same side. They left her standing on the bridge of her sinking ship, surrounded by the wreckage of Casimir's failed operation. Hours later, on the damaged but still habitable portions of Amazon Lily, Garp's allied forces regrouped. The Marines had fully withdrawn, leaving behind considerable destruction but, miraculously, few casualties. The Kuja were already organizing repair efforts, their resilience remarkable even in the face of such devastation. We got lucky, Kazan observed, watching Hancock directing her warriors. If Luffy and Ace hadn't arrived when they did. It wasn't luck, Garp replied. It was Casimir's mistake. He divided his forces, kept too many secrets from his own commanders, and underestimated our coordination. Still, the damage is extensive. The island will recover. The Kuja are survivors. They were joined by Luffy, Ace, and Sabo, the 3 brothers reunited again after separating for their individual missions. We got your message about G5, Ace reported. Sabo's ships are ready to depart as soon as we're done here. What did you learn at your targets? Garp asked. Fishman Island was definitely a diversion, Luffy confirmed. The Marines gave up too easily. Same at Water 7, Ace added. They were just going through the motions. And Drum Kingdom wasn't even a real operation, Sabo concluded. Just a token presence to make us think it was a target. Garp nodded grimly. Everything points to G5. Whatever Casimir's planning there, it's big enough that he's willing to sacrifice other operations to ensure it succeeds. Then that's where we need to be, Luffy declared with his usual straightforwardness. It's almost certainly a trap, Kazan warned. Of course it is, Ace grinned. But we're going anyway. Not all of us, Garp decided. Luffy, your crew should stay here and help the Kuja rebuild. Ace, I need you and Marco to check on the other territories that might still be targeted. Sabo, Kazan, and I will investigate G5. No way. Luffy protested immediately. I'm coming with you, Grandpa. For once, I agree with Luffy, Ace added. We should stay together. This isn't about what we want, Garp explained patiently. It's about what needs to be done. The Kuja protected us at great cost, we owe them our help now. And the other territories might still be in danger if Casimir redirects his forces. But G5 will be handled by those best suited for the mission, Garp cut Luffy off. Sabo has the Revolutionary Army's intelligence network. Kazan knows the Marine base layout. And I know Casimir better than any of you. This is the right team for the job. Though clearly unhappy, Luffy eventually relented, recognizing the logic in Garp's plan. As preparations were made for the various groups to depart, Garp found a moment alone with his grandsons. I'm proud of you three, he told them, his gruff voice softening. Working together, supporting each other. It's all I've ever wanted for my family. We learn from the best, Sabo said with a grin. Yeah, Ace agreed. You showed us what it means to put family first. Shishishi. Luffy laughed. Grandpa's gone soft. Who's soft? Garp demanded, delivering his famous fist of love to each of their heads in turn, though with noticeably less force than in years past. As they rubbed their sore heads, still laughing, Garp felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the tropical climate of Amazon Lily. For all the chaos of the past 6 months, for all the dangers still ahead, he had his family. And that made everything worthwhile. But as night fell and he prepared to depart for G5 with Sabo and Kazan, that warmth was tempered by a growing sense of foreboding. Casimir had dedicated too many resources, taken too many risks, for whatever awaited them at the Marine base to be anything but deadly. Ready, old man? Kazan asked as they boarded the revolutionary ship. As ready as I'll ever be, Garp replied, watching Amazon Lily shrink in the distance. Let's go see what Casimir's been hiding. The ship cut through the dark waters, heading toward what all of them suspected would be their greatest challenge yet. Whatever secrets G5 held, whatever trap Casimir had laid, Garp was determined to face it head-on. Because that's what the hero of the Marines had always done, even now, when that title had been stripped away, leaving only the man behind. Chapter 3, The True Justice. G5 naval base loomed like a fortress of iron and stone against the slate-gray sky. Once a standard Marine outpost, it had transformed in recent months into something far more ominous, surrounded by additional fortifications, bristling with weapons, and shrouded in secrecy. Damn, Sabo whispered from their observation point on a nearby island. They've tripled the defenses since my last intelligence report. Garp studied the base through high-powered binoculars, his experienced eyes picking out details others might miss. Those aren't standard Marine cannons on the north wall. And those patrol patterns aren't regulation. Casimir's built his own private fortress, Kazan agreed, frost forming around his feet as he unconsciously activated his powers. The question is, what's he protecting? For 3 days, they'd observed G5 from a distance, using the Revolutionary Army's most advanced surveillance techniques. They'd identified patrol routes, mapped guard rotations, and pinpointed potential weaknesses in the base's defenses. But the central mystery remained: what project was so important that Casimir would sacrifice operations across the world to ensure its security? Our infiltration team reports heavy activity in the underground levels, Sabo said, reviewing the latest intelligence from operatives who had managed to place surveillance den mushy in the base's periphery. Lots of restricted areas, scientists coming and going at all hours. Sounds like Vegapunk's involvement, Kazan noted. Vegapunk wouldn't support whatever Casimir's doing, Garp objected. He's eccentric, but not cruel. People change, Kazan said quietly. Especially when the world government applies pressure. Before Garp could respond, a small, unmarked boat approached their hidden cove. The three men tensed, ready for combat, until they recognized the distinctive pink hair of the boat's lone occupant. Kobe. Garp stood, genuinely surprised to see his former protege. The young Marine captain secured his boat and climbed to their observation post, looking nervously over his shoulder. Master Garp, he greeted with a quick bow. I came as soon as I got your message. What message? Garp asked, immediately suspicious. I never contacted you. Kobe blinked in confusion. But the Den Den Mushi call, it used your old emergency code. Garp, Kazan, and Sabo exchanged alarmed glances. It's a setup, Kazan realized. Casimir knows we're here. We need to move, Sabo said, already gathering their equipment. Now. But before they could react further, the air filled with the sound of incoming projectiles. Explosions rocked their position as artillery shells from G5 found their target with pinpoint accuracy. How did they find us? Sabo shouted over the blasts, erecting a hasty barrier of flame to shield them from debris. Someone gave away our location, Garp concluded grimly, pulling Kobe to cover as another barrage hit nearby. But Kobe's arrival was just coincidental timing. Or part of the trap, Kazan countered. I swear I didn't know. Kobe protested. The message came through secure channels. It sounded exactly like something Garp-san would say. We can sort this out later, Garp decided. Right now, we need to survive. The shelling continued, methodically destroying their observation post and cutting off obvious escape routes. Marine ships appeared on the horizon, moving to surround the small island. They're boxing us in, Sabo observed. Classic containment strategy. Then we break the box, Garp replied. He turned to Kobe, who looked torn between his loyalty to his mentor and his duty as a Marine. Kobe, I won't ask you to fight against your comrades. Stay here if you want. Kobe straightened, resolution replacing his earlier confusion. With all due respect, sir, I didn't come this far to stay behind. Whatever's happening at G5, it's wrong. I can feel it. Garp nodded, pride momentarily displacing his concern. Good man. Then follow me. And try to keep up. Instead of retreating away from the approaching marine vessels, Garp charged directly toward the shoreline. The others followed, trusting his instincts even if his strategy seemed suicidal. Kazan. Garp called over his shoulder. We need a path. The former admiral nodded, understanding immediately. With a sweep of his arms, he created a massive ice bridge extending from the shore toward the nearest marine ship. The vessel's crew, expecting their targets to be pinned down by the artillery barrage, were completely unprepared when Garp sprinted across the ice at inhuman speed, closing the distance in seconds. What's he doing? Kobe asked, wide-eyed. Being Garp, Sabo replied with a grin. Come on. They followed across the ice bridge, watching as Garp leapt from the end of the path, soaring through the air toward the marine ship's deck. He landed with enough force to crack the wooden planks, immediately engaging the startled Marines. By the time Sabo, Kazan, and Kobe reached the ship, Garp had already incapacitated half the crew. Not killed, Garp was still careful about that, even as a wanted man, but they wouldn't be fighting again anytime soon. Take the helm. Garp ordered Kobe. Head for that gap between the patrol boats. Kobe jumped to obey, his marine training making the commandeered vessel respond smoothly to his commands despite the chaos of battle around him. Sabo and Kazan defended the ship as marine snipers from other vessels opened fire, one melting bullets with precise fire techniques, the other creating ice shields against larger projectiles. They're coordinating too well. Kazan observed as the marine ships adjusted their formation, closing the gap Kobe had been aiming for. Someone's feeding them our movements in real time. Someone with access to our plans, Sabo agreed, his expression darkening. We have a traitor. Worry about that later, Garp called from the bow, where he was literally catching cannonballs and hurling them back at the ships firing them. Kobe. New heading. Straight for G5's main harbor. Sir. Kobe questioned, even as he adjusted course. That's suicide. The harbor defenses will tear this ship apart before we get within 100 meters. Exactly what they'll expect us to know, Garp replied with a fierce grin. Which is why they won't have their best defenses there. Their trap is out here on the water. The base itself is our best chance. It was classic Garp thinking, so straightforward it wrapped around to being brilliant. Instead of playing the elaborate game of feint and counter-feint that Casimir had prepared, Garp was charging directly at his opponent's center. As they approached G5's imposing harbor, alarms blared from the base. Gun emplacements swiveled to target them, and Marines rushed to defensive positions. But just as Garp had predicted, the response seemed almost perfunctory, as if the base's true defensive power was indeed committed elsewhere. Kuzan. Iceberg, starboard side. Garp ordered. Understanding the strategy, Kuzan created a massive formation of ice beside their stolen vessel. To observers from the base, it would appear they were attempting to use the ice as a shield, but Garp had something else in mind. Everyone off the ship. Now. They abandoned the vessel, concealing themselves behind Kuzan's ice formation as Garp remained at the helm, steering directly toward the harbor's defensive barriers. The marine gunners, seeing only a single figure aboard, concentrated their fire on Garp. At the last possible moment, Garp leapt from the ship, using his incredible strength to propel himself beyond the ice shield to where the others waited. The abandoned vessel crashed into the harbor barriers with explosive force, creating a massive distraction. Now for the real entrance, Garp said, pointing to a small service door barely visible in the base's eastern wall, a minor access point unlikely to be heavily guarded during an apparent frontal assault. They moved swiftly, using the chaos of the ship collision as cover. Kobe's marine uniform proved unexpectedly useful, allowing him to approach the door without immediately raising alarms. A guard challenged him, but before the man could react to the unexpected presence of the others, Sabo rendered him unconscious with a precise strike. I know this base, Kuzan murmured as they slipped inside. The research facilities will be in the lower levels. But without knowing what we're looking for. We split up, Garp decided. Kobe, you're with me. Your uniform might buy us some time if we're spotted. Kuzan, take the west wing, that's where the secure communications would be. Sabo, the east, find their research data. And if we find Casimir? Sabo asked. Don't engage, Garp warned. Signal the others and wait for backup. He's mine. They separated, each taking a different route deeper into the fortress. Garp and Kobe moved through service corridors, avoiding the main hallways where Marines rushed to respond to the harbor attack. Despite the circumstances, Garp felt a familiar thrill, the same excitement he'd experienced during covert operations decades earlier, before desk duties and administrative roles had claimed so much of his time. Just like the old days, he muttered, almost to himself. Sir. Kobe whispered. Nothing, Garp replied. Stay sharp. They descended through the levels of the base, Garp's uncanny sense of direction guiding them toward areas likely to contain important facilities. The deeper they went, the fewer personnel they encountered, but those they did see wore lab coats rather than marine uniforms. Scientists, Kobe observed quietly. Lots of them. And not just any scientists, Garp added, noting details Kobe had missed. See their badges? Those are Vegapunk's assistants. Top-level researchers who normally work directly with the doctor himself. They paused at a junction, listening to two researchers talking as they passed. Final calibration tests are complete, one was saying. The prototypes performed well in the field. And the subjects? Asked the second. Stable, for now. But Casimir is pushing the timetable. He wants full deployment within the week, ethics protocols be damned. Can the subjects handle that acceleration? Does he care? They're expendable. The technology is what matters. The scientists moved out of earshot, leaving Garp and Kobe exchanging troubled glances. Subjects? Kobe whispered. What are they doing here? Garp's expression darkened. Nothing good. They continued deeper, eventually reaching a heavily secured door marked, Project Nemesis, authorized personnel only. Unlike other areas they'd passed, this one featured both electronic locks and armed guards, Marines with the distinctive insignia of Casimir's SSG unit. We can't get past them without raising alarms, Kobe whispered. We don't need to, Garp replied, pointing to a ventilation shaft above them. Old Marine bases all have the same design flaw. The air circulation system connects all secure areas for emergency ventilation purposes. With surprising agility for his size, Garp leapt up and removed the grate covering the shaft. He pulled himself inside, then reached down to help Kobe up. The shaft was cramped for someone of Garp's build, but he moved through it with practiced ease, having used similar routes for surprise inspections throughout his career. They crawled through the dusty passages until they reached another grate, this one looking down into a vast laboratory space. What they saw below made even Garp, veteran of countless battles and witness to the world government's many atrocities, freeze in horror. Dozens of transparent tanks filled the room, each containing a floating human figure connected to tubes and monitoring equipment. But these weren't ordinary humans, their bodies had been modified, altered in ways that defied natural biology. Some had multiple limbs, others metallic components fused with flesh. All wore expressions of pain even in unconsciousness. What is this? Kobe whispered, his face pale. What are they doing to these people? Human experimentation, Garp replied grimly. Illegal even under world government law. They're creating living weapons. Scientists moved between the tanks, making adjustments to equipment and taking notes on the subjects' conditions. At the center of the laboratory stood Vice Admiral Casimir himself, reviewing data on a large screen while speaking to a hunched figure in a lab coat. I want the final batch ready for deployment immediately, Dr. Casimir was saying. The Fleet Admiral's inspection is in 3 days. We need to demonstrate conclusive results. These subjects need more time, the scientist protested. Their systems are still adapting to the modifications. Rushing the process could lead to catastrophic failures. Then find more subjects, Casimir replied coldly. The prison blocks are full of pirates and revolutionaries. Use them. Even with more test subjects, the ethical protocols, Casimir cut him off, were designed for peacetime research. We are at war, Doctor, a war against chaos, against the cancer of piracy that Garp's treachery has only encouraged. Extraordinary threats require extraordinary responses. The scientist seemed to shrink under Casimir's gaze. Yes, Vice Admiral. Garp had seen enough. He started to back away from the grate, signaling Kobe to follow, when a small piece of rust broke loose beneath his hand. The tiny fragment fell through the grate, landing on a metal table below with an impossibly loud ping. Casimir's head snapped up, his unervingly pale eyes scanning the ceiling. We have intruders, he announced calmly. Security Protocol Omega. Now. Alarms blared throughout the facility. The grate beneath Garp gave way as a Marine fired upward, sending him and Kobe tumbling into the laboratory below. They landed hard but recovered quickly, ready to fight. Garp, Casimir greeted, as if welcoming an expected guest. Right on schedule. Casimir, Garp replied, his voice tight with anger. What have you done here? Created the future of marine justice, Casimir gestured to the tanks surrounding them. Project Nemesis, the answer to pirates with devil fruit powers, to revolutionaries with advanced technology, to every threat that has made the seas unsafe. By turning people into weapons? Garp demanded. This isn't justice, it's monstrous. Is it? Casimir raised an eyebrow. The world government has always used whatever tools necessary to maintain order. See Stone, Pacifistas, the threat of Buster Calls. This is merely the next evolution. These are human beings. They're criminals, Casimir corrected. Pirates, revolutionaries, enemies of peace who chose their path. Now they serve a greater purpose. SSG Marines surrounded Garp and Kobe, weapons raised. Garp assessed the situation with the experienced eye of a veteran commander. Too many civilians, the scientists, to risk a full battle. Too many unknowns about the tank subject's stability if damaged in crossfire. Stand down, Garp, Casimir advised. Even you can't fight your way out of this. Not without risking these tanks rupturing, which, I should warn you, would be fatal for the subjects inside. You're going to kill them anyway, Garp countered. No. Transform them. Elevate them. Casimir's eyes gleamed with fanatical belief. They will become the sword of absolute justice, incorruptible, uncompromising, perfect. Kobe stepped forward, his young face set with determination despite his fear. This violates everything the Marines stand for. We protect people. Ah, Captain Kobe, Casimir acknowledged him with a thin smile. Garp's protégé. I'm not surprised to find you here, though I am disappointed. You showed such promise. I joined the Marines to fight for justice, Kobe replied steadily. Real justice, not this. And what is real justice, Captain? The kind that lets pirates roam free. That allows men like Whitebeard and Shanks to control entire territories. That turns a blind eye while dragons' revolutionaries undermine world stability. Casimir shook his head. That's not justice. That's surrender. Enough philosophy, Garp interrupted. You won't get away with this, Casimir. Even the Gorosei won't sanction human experimentation on this scale. The Gorosei, Casimir replied calmly, have already approved Project Nemesis. In fact, they've been quite generous with funding and resources. They understand what you never did, Garp, that half measures will never bring true peace. A commotion from the laboratory entrance interrupted them. Marines dragged in two struggling prisoners, Kazan and Sabo, both in sea stone cuffs. Your companions weren't as stealthy as they imagined, Casimir observed. Though I must thank them, especially Sabo. His communication with the Revolutionary Army provided exactly the opportunity we needed. What are you talking about? Garp demanded. Did you really think your little infiltration was coincidental? That you just happened to discover our most secret project? Casimir smiled thinly. We've been feeding you information for months, steering you precisely where we wanted you to go. The traitor, Sabo realized, looking stricken. Someone in our network. Several someones, actually, Casimir corrected. Survival is a powerful motivator, and the Revolutionary Army isn't as secure as Dragon believes. But our most valuable source has been much closer to you. He nodded to someone behind Garp. Wouldn't you agree, Lieutenant Commander? Garp turned to see Isako, the same Marine officer who had delivered Casimir's ultimatum at Amazon Lily, enter the laboratory. But instead of the uniform she'd worn then, she now dressed in civilian clothes similar to those worn by Garp's allies. You, Garp breathed, understanding dawning. You weren't captured on Amazon Lily. You escaped. And made her way to your precious Fist Island, Casimir finished. Where you welcomed her as a defector, a Marine disillusioned by our tactics. She played her role perfectly. I serve justice, Isako said, her voice steady but her eyes unable to meet Garp's. The Marines are justice. Is this justice? Garp demanded, gesturing to the tanks of suffering subjects. Look at them, Isako. Is this what you signed up for? For a brief moment, doubt flickered across the young officer's face. Then Casimir stepped between them, cutting off her view. Take them to holding cells, he ordered. Separate them. And prepare the demonstration chamber. The Fleet Admiral will want to see our progress when he arrives. Fleet Admiral Sengoku is coming here? Kobe asked, surprised. Tomorrow, Casimir confirmed. To witness the dawn of a new era of marine power. He studied Garp with cold satisfaction. And to observe justice being served to the man who betrayed everything the Marines stand for. As they were led away, Garp caught Isako's eye one last time. The doubt he'd seen hadn't vanished completely, despite Casimir's intervention. It was small, but it was something, a crack in the armor of absolute belief. And Garp had been fighting long enough to know that sometimes, a small crack was all you needed to bring down the strongest fortress. The holding cells in G5's deepest level were designed for maximum security, stone bars, constant surveillance, and complete isolation from one another. Garp sat in his cell, apparently calm despite the circumstances, while Marines stood guard just out of reach. In reality, his mind raced with calculations and contingencies. Casimir had outplayed them, using their own intelligence network against them. But the Vice Admiral had made one critical mistake: he'd revealed his entire plan, confident in his victory. That arrogance created opportunity. A soft, nearly imperceptible tapping sound came from the wall behind him. Morse code, an old marine communication method rarely used anymore. Garp. Tracking device active. Allies notified. Kuzan. Despite the stone cuffs, the former admiral had managed to activate some kind of signaling device. Hope stirred in Garp's chest. He tapped back, timeline. The response came quickly, unknown. Sengoku arrives tomorrow. Opportunity. An interesting thought. Sengoku's arrival could be either a disaster or their salvation, depending on how his old friend reacted to Casimir's project. Despite their current adversarial relationship, Garp knew Sengoku well enough to be certain he wouldn't approve of the human experimentation happening here. Before he could respond, footsteps approached his cell. Isako stood on the other side of the bars, dismissing the guards with a curt nod. Come to gloat? Garp asked once they were alone. To understand, she replied quietly. Why did you do it, Garp? You were a hero. The marine hero. Why throw it all away for pirates? I didn't throw anything away for pirates, Garp corrected her. I made a choice for family. There's a difference. Is there? She challenged. You had a duty, I had many duties, Garp interrupted. To the Marines, yes. But also to my family, to basic human decency, to the true meaning of justice. When those duties conflict, we all have to choose. And you chose family over justice. No, Garp said firmly. I chose real justice over the Marines' version of it. Look around you, Isako. Look at what's happening in this base. Is this the justice you believe in? Experimenting on human beings? Turning prisoners into weapons? Isako's gaze wavered. Vice Admiral Casimir says it's necessary. To protect people from pirates like your grandson, my grandson, Garp cut in, has never experimented on unwilling human subjects. He's fought corrupt world nobles, freed slaves, defended islands from those who would exploit them. What has Casimir done except perpetuate the cycle of violence and control that keeps the world government in power? The world government maintains order, Isako argued, though with less conviction. The world government maintains inequality, Garp countered. I served them for decades, Isako. I've seen what happens in the shadows, the deals with pirates when it's convenient, the assassinations of political opponents, the suppression of historical truth. I told myself it was necessary for the greater good. That the system, for all its flaws, was better than chaos. He stood, moving closer to the bars. But there's a line. There are things no ideal, no allegiance should make you accept. What's happening in this base? That's my line. What's yours? Isako didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was barely audible. The subjects, they scream sometimes. Even through sedation. The scientists say they can't feel pain, but... They're lying, Garp said gently. You know they're lying. What can I do? She asked suddenly, real anguish breaking through her disciplined exterior. I'm just one officer. Casimir controls everything here. Help us stop him, Garp urged. Not for me, not for my grandsons or the revolutionaries or anyone else you've been taught to see as enemies. For the Marine Corps you believed in when you joined, the one that protects people, that stands for real justice. Uncertainty played across Isako's young face. She opened her mouth to respond when a klaxon suddenly blared throughout the detention area. Perimeter breach. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. The announcement echoed through the corridors. Isako's eyes widened. Your allies, they're here already. How? I have a lot of friends, Garp replied with a slight smile. Some in surprising places. She hesitated, visibly torn between duty and the growing doubts Garp had nurtured. Finally, she reached a decision. I need to report to my post, she said loudly, for the benefit of any listening devices. Then, much softer, the cell block controls are in the security office, East Corridor. The access code is 4-4-7-2-1. Your personal effects are stored in Locker 103. With that, she turned and hurried away, her posture rigid but her path deliberately taking her away from the security office she'd just mentioned. Garp waited until her footsteps faded before tapping rapidly on the wall to Kazan. Attack underway. We have help inside. Stand ready. Outside G5, chaos reigned as Marine defenses scrambled to respond to an assault unlike anything they had prepared for. Not one enemy force but three converged on the base from different directions. From the west came ships bearing the flag of the Revolutionary Army, led by none other than Dragon himself. From the east, a fleet of former Whitebeard pirates commanded by Marco and Ace. And from directly offshore, the impossible sight of a Marine battleship firing upon the base, with Fleet Admiral Sengoku visible on its deck. In the base's command center, Casimir watched the surveillance feeds with growing rage. How did they find us? He demanded. How did they coordinate this? A communications officer looked up from his station, face pale. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Marine battleship. It's Fleet Admiral Sengoku, requesting immediate communication with you. Put him through, Casimir ordered, composing his features into respectful attentiveness. Fleet Admiral, we're under attack by revolutionary and pirate forces. I've activated all defenses and, Casimir, Sengoku interrupted, his voice glacial even through the den mushi. What have you done? Sir. I don't understand. Project Nemesis, Sengoku said. The human experimentation. The illegal modification of prisoners without trial or sentence. Casimir's expression froze. Sir, I can explain. These measures are necessary to combat the rising pirate threat after Garp's betrayal. The Gorosei themselves approved, the Gorosei, Sengoku cut him off again, have no authority to approve violations of marine law. Regardless of what they might have told you. With respect, Fleet Admiral, you don't understand the full scope of the project. The subjects are all convicted criminals, enemies of the world government who have rights under Marine Judicial Code, Sengoku finished for him. I'm ordering you to stand down, Casimir. Cease all operations at G5 immediately. Release Garp and the other prisoners. We will discuss this matter properly at headquarters. Casimir's carefully maintained calm began to crack. I cannot do that, sir. The project is too important. The future of marine justice depends on it. This isn't justice, Sengoku replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. This is the exact corruption Garp warned me about before he left. Garp is a traitor. Casimir shouted, his composure finally shattering. He murdered Admiral Akainu. He helped pirates escape. He betrayed everything the Marines stand for. And what do the Marines stand for, Casimir? Sengoku asked quietly. What did you think we represented when you joined? The question seemed to catch Casimir off guard. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in his pale eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold resolution. I no longer recognize your authority, Fleet Admiral, he said formally. You've been compromised by your friendship with Garp. The SSG will continue its mission without your approval. He cut the transmission, turning to his stunned officers. Activate all defenses. Deploy the completed Nemesis units. No one enters or leaves this base without my direct authorization. Sir, one officer ventured hesitantly, those are direct orders from the Fleet Admiral. The Fleet Admiral is no longer in command here, Casimir snapped. Anyone who disagrees is free to join him, as a prisoner of war. The command center fell silent as officers exchanged uncertain glances. Then, one by one, they returned to their stations. Not out of loyalty to Casimir, perhaps, but out of fear. Sir, the communications officer spoke up again. We have internal alarms in the detention level. The prisoners are escaping. Casimir's face darkened further. Deploy security teams. And prepare the Nemesis prototypes for their first real combat test. In the detention level, Garp moved swiftly through the corridors, Kazan and Kobe close behind. Sabo had split off to free other revolutionary prisoners held in a separate block. They'd encountered surprisingly little resistance. Most of the base's personnel had responded to the external attack, leaving the interior lightly guarded. What's the plan? Kobe asked as they reached a junction. First, we stop whatever demonstration Casimir planned for Sengoku, Garp replied. Then we expose Project Nemesis to the world. And how exactly do we do that? Kazan asked. Garp grinned. We use their own communication systems against them. G5 has a broadcast array powerful enough to reach Den Mushi across the entire New World. If we can access it, we can show everyone what's happening here, Kobe finished, understanding dawning. But we'll need evidence. The research lab, Garp nodded. Casimir conveniently showed us exactly where it is. They changed direction, heading for the central laboratory complex. As they approached, however, they encountered their first significant resistance, a squad of SSG Marines guarding the entrance. No time for subtlety, Garp decided, cracking his knuckles. Kobe, stay behind us. Kazan, you take the left flank. What followed was a brief but intense demonstration of why Garp had earned his legendary status. Despite his age, he moved with devastating speed and precision, his hockey-enhanced blows incapacitating opponents before they could even raise their weapons. Kazan matched him on the left, his ice abilities returned to full strength now that he was free of sea stone restraints. Within moments, the guards lay unconscious, and the path to the laboratory stood open. Inside, they found scientists frantically destroying documentation and shutting down equipment. Stop! Garp commanded with such authority that several researchers froze instinctively, the ingrained response to a vice admiral's order overriding their immediate instructions. What's happening? Kobe demanded, approaching the nearest scientist. Where are the test subjects? Jigan, the man stammered. Vice Admiral Casimir ordered them moved to the deployment bay. The prototypes are being activated for combat. Garp's blood ran cold. How many? T-20 functional units. The most stable ones. And the others? The scientist couldn't meet his eyes. Terminated. To prevent evidence from falling into enemy hands. Kazan cursed softly. We're too late. Not yet, Garp countered. Kobe, secure these scientists and gather all the research data you can find. Kazan, find Sabo and any other allies in the base. We'll need all the help we can get. What about you? Kazan asked. Garp's expression hardened. I'm going to the deployment bay. Those test subjects may be modified, but they're still human beings. I won't let Casimir use them as weapons. You can't face them alone, Kobe protested. If they're as powerful as Casimir claims, I won't be alone, Garp cut him off. Not for long. He tapped his recently recovered transponder snail. Our friends outside will be making their way in by now. I just need to buy some time. Before they could argue further, he was gone, moving with surprising speed for a man of his size and age. The layout of marine bases was standardized enough that he could guess where the deployment bay would be, near the harbor facilities but protected from external attack. As he navigated the increasingly chaotic corridors of G5, Garp encountered pockets of conflict where revolutionary forces or pirates had penetrated the base's defenses. He avoided direct engagement where possible, focused solely on reaching his destination before Casimir could unleash his weapons. The deployment bay turned out to be a massive hangar near the base's eastern wall, converted from what had once been a ship maintenance facility. Garp approached cautiously, hearing the distinct sounds of mechanical systems and issuing commands from within. What he saw when he peered through an observation port chilled him to the core. 20 figures stood in formation, each a horrific merger of human and machine. Their bodies had been augmented with metallic components, their limbs replaced with weapons, their eyes vacant yet somehow aware. Behind them stood Casimir, issuing final instructions to the technicians making adjustments to the units. Full combat protocols, the Vice Admiral was ordering. Primary targets are the revolutionary commanders and any former Marines fighting alongside them. Secondary targets are the pirate forces. Capture when possible, lethal force authorized when necessary. Sir, one technician said hesitantly, the neural suppressors are showing instability in Units 7 and 12. They may not maintain compliance in combat conditions. Increase the suppression level, Casimir replied without hesitation. If they still show instability, terminate and deploy the reserves. Garp had seen enough. He pushed through the door with enough force to tear it from its hinges, the metal slab crashing to the floor with a thunderous impact that drew every eye in the hangar. This ends now, Casimir, he announced, his voice carrying across the vast space. Casimir showed no surprise at his appearance. Right on schedule, Garp. I was wondering when you'd find us. He turned to the modified soldiers. Nemesis units, target acquired. Capture protocol. The figures moved with unnatural coordination, spreading out to surround Garp. Their movements were jerky yet precise, as if their bodies hadn't fully adapted to the modifications forced upon them. These people, Garp said, watching the units warily, whatever you've done to them, they're still human beings. They deserve better than to be your weapons. They are no longer people, Casimir replied coldly. They are justice incarnate, incorruptible, untiring, perfect in their purpose. There's nothing perfect about this, Garp countered, his voice heavy with disgust. This is the opposite of everything the Marines should stand for. The Marines stand for order, Casimir snapped. For centuries we've fought a losing battle against chaos, constrained by rules while our enemies recognize none. That ends today. He gestured to the technicians. Full offensive protocols. Take him. The Nemesis units attacked in perfect synchronization, their movements faster and more powerful than ordinary humans. But Garp was no ordinary opponent. Despite being outnumbered 20-1, he met their assault with the skill and power that had made him legendary. His hockey-enhanced fists deflected mechanical limbs, his decades of combat experience allowing him to predict and counter their coordinated attacks. Yet he was careful, pulling punches that might have been lethal, focusing on disabling rather than destroying. Whatever these people had been before Casimir's experiments, Garp refused to see them as mere weapons to be broken. You're holding back, Casimir observed from the sidelines. Still so sentimental, even now. It's not sentiment, Garp grunted, evading a barrage of attacks. It's humanity. Something you've forgotten. The battle continued, Garp somehow holding his own against overwhelming odds. But even his legendary stamina had limits. Gradually, the relentless assault began to wear him down. A mechanical fist slipped past his guard, striking his ribs with bone-cracking force. A bladed arm opened a gash across his shoulder. You see? Casimir called as Garp faltered. This is the future of marine power. Not even the great Garp the Fist can stand against it. Garp straightened despite his injuries, his expression resolute. Maybe not alone. A massive explosion rocked the far wall of the hangar. Through the smoke and debris stepped a figure that made even Casimir's confidence waver, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, transformed into his Buddha form, golden light radiating from his massive body. Casimir, Sengoku's voice boomed across the hangar. Stand down. Now. Fleet Admiral, Casimir acknowledged, recovering quickly. Just in time to witness the demonstration I prepared for you. This isn't a demonstration, Sengoku replied, his normally composed features tight with anger. It's an abomination. It's necessary. Casimir insisted. You've grown soft, Sengoku. Too willing to compromise, too hesitant to use the power at our disposal. These weapons will change everything, give us the advantage we need to finally end the Great Pirate Era. At what cost? Sengoku demanded. The marine soul. While they argued, Garp used the distraction to his advantage. He'd noticed something during the fight, moments when the Nemesis units seemed to hesitate, flickers of consciousness breaking through their programming. Now, with Casimir's attention diverted, he approached the nearest unit. I know you're still in there, he said quietly. Fight it. Remember who you are. The unit's mechanical eyes focused on him, a tremor running through its augmented body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, its weapons lowered. That's it, Garp encouraged. You're not a weapon. You're a person. One by one, the other units began to show similar signs of breaking conditioning. Their movements became less coordinated, their perfect formation faltering. What are you doing? Casimir demanded, noticing the change. Nemesis units, return to combat protocol immediately. Some obeyed, their programming reasserting control. But others continued to resist, the human consciousness within fighting against its mechanical prison. You didn't account for will, Garp told Casimir. You can modify their bodies, suppress their minds, but you can't eliminate their fundamental humanity. Their will to be free. Increase neural suppression to maximum. Casimir ordered the technicians frantically. Override all safety protocols. Sir, that could cause permanent neural damage or death, one technician protested. Do it. Before the order could be carried out, another explosion rocked the hangar as a section of the ceiling collapsed. Through the newly created opening dropped multiple figures, Ace, Sabo, Luffy, and several others from their allied forces. Sorry we're late, Gramps. Luffy called cheerfully, as if arriving for a family dinner rather than a desperate battle. We got held up by some weird robot guys outside. I told you to stay at Amazon Lily, Garp grumbled, though there was no real anger in his voice. Yeah, well, when do I ever listen? Luffy grinned, then turned serious as he took in the scene. What are those things? People, Garp corrected firmly. People Casimir has experimented on and turned into weapons. Luffy's normally carefree expression hardened with anger. That's messed up. Indeed it is, agreed a new voice as Kazan entered through the damaged wall, accompanied by Kobe and several revolutionary commanders. And the world is about to know exactly what's been happening here. He held up a small broadcasting device. This is transmitting live to the Revolutionary Army's communication network. Everything we're seeing, everything we're saying, it's being broadcast to Den Den Mushi across the world. Casimir's face contorted with rage. You can't, We already are, Dragon confirmed, stepping into view. The world government's latest atrocity, exposed for all to see. Casimir looked around wildly, seeing his carefully constructed project crumbling around him. The Nemesis units were increasingly breaking free of their programming, his officers were hesitating to follow orders, and his enemies had united against him. In desperation, he activated a device on his wrist. Initiation code Omega 60. Self-destruct protocol for all Nemesis units. No. Garp lunged toward him, but it was too late. The modified humans began convulsing, their mechanical components overheating, their bodies betraying them one final time. But instead of the coordinated destruction Casimir had programmed, something unexpected happened. Several units turned toward Casimir himself, their weapons raising not against Garp or the intruders, but against the man who had tortured and transformed them. Command override rejected, one spoke in a mechanical voice tinged with very human hatred. Target reassigned. Casimir backed away in disbelief. Impossible. The programming is absolute. Will is stronger, Garp said simply. Before the units could attack, however, Sengoku intervened. With a swift, precise application of his Buddha powers, he disabled the mechanical components of the advancing units without harming the human elements. Enough death, the fleet admiral declared. These victims deserve justice, real justice, not more suffering. As the situation stabilized, medical personnel from both the Revolutionary Army and Sengoku's loyal Marines moved in to help the former Nemesis units. Many were beyond saving, their bodies too damaged by Casimir's experiments and the self-destruct protocol, but others might yet be recovered. Casimir stood alone now, abandoned by his officers, his project in ruins, his ambitions exposed to the world. Yet still, his conviction didn't waver. You've won nothing, he told Garp. The threats remain. Pirates still ravage innocent islands. Revolutionaries still undermine global stability. And now the Marine's strongest weapon has been destroyed. The Marine's strongest weapon was never these abominations, Garp replied. It was the trust of the people we swore to protect. Something you sacrificed in your pursuit of power. Absolute justice is a lie, Garp cut him off. There is no absolute justice, Casimir. Only choices we make, moment by moment, to be better than our worst instincts. Sengoku approached, his Buddha form receding until he stood as his normal self. Vice Admiral Casimir, you are relieved of duty and placed under arrest for violations of marine law, illegal experimentation on human subjects, and insubordination. For a moment, it seemed Casimir might resist. Then, surprisingly, he straightened to attention and offered a perfect marine salute. I accept your authority, Fleet Admiral, he said formally. But know this, everything I did was for the Marine Corps. For a world where justice prevails. No, Garp said quietly. It was for a world where control prevails. That's not the same thing. As Marine officers loyal to Sengoku led Casimir away, Garp found himself face to face with his old friend for the first time since Marineford. You came, he said simply. Did you doubt I would? Sengoku replied. After Marineford, yes. Sengoku sighed, suddenly looking every year of his age. I've been doing a lot of thinking since that day, Garp. About what the Marines have become. What I've allowed them to become. And I'm not sure I like the answer, Sengoku admitted. This, he gestured to the remnants of Project Nemesis, isn't what I spent my life building. But I let it happen. By looking the other way, by telling myself certain compromises were necessary. We both did, Garp acknowledged. For too long. Around them, the Allied forces, pirates, revolutionaries, and rogue Marines, were securing the base, freeing prisoners, gathering evidence of Casimir's atrocities. Luffy, Ace, and Sabo worked seamlessly together, three brothers united in purpose despite their different paths. What happens now? Garp asked. You know the world government won't let this stand. They'll deny involvement, claim Casimir acted alone, try to bury the truth. Let them try, Dragon said, joining their conversation. The broadcast reached every corner of the world. People know what happened here. Knowledge isn't enough, Sengoku cautioned. The world government has weathered scandals before. This time is different, Kazan observed, approaching with Kobe. This time, we have you. Sengoku raised an eyebrow. Me? The fleet admiral of the Marines, Garp explained, understanding Kazan's point. If you stand with us, if you acknowledge what happened here and demand accountability, they can't simply brush it aside. Sengoku considered this, his expression troubled. You're asking me to publicly oppose the world government. To risk everything I've built. I'm asking you to stand for what the Marines should be, Garp replied. What we always claimed to be. A long silence fell between them as Sengoku wrestled with the choice before him. Finally, he nodded, resolution settling over his features. Very well, he said. But understand what this means, Garp. If I do this, there's no going back, for any of us. The world government will respond with everything they have. Then we'll face it together, Garp said simply. Like we always have. The aftermath of what would later be called the G5 incident rippled across the world like a tsunami. The broadcast, enhanced and retransmitted by Revolutionary Army networks, reached even the most remote islands. People everywhere saw the horrors of Project Nemesis, heard Casimir's cold justifications, witnessed the unity of forces normally at odds coming together to stop a greater evil. But most significantly, they saw Fleet Admiral Sengoku, standing before a global audience, acknowledge the crimes committed in the name of justice and vow reform. The Marine Corps exists to protect the people of this world, he declared, his words carried by Den Den Mushi to every corner of the globe. When we fail in that duty, when we become the very threat we swore to combat, we must be held accountable. Project Nemesis represents a fundamental betrayal of our core principles, and those responsible will face justice. The world government's response was swift and predictable. They denied authorization of the project, claimed Casimir had acted independently, and attempted to suppress further discussion. But the genie couldn't be returned to its bottle. Too many had seen, too many knew. When the Gorosei demanded Sengoku retract his statement and reaffirm loyalty to the world government, he made the most momentous decision of his career. He resigned as Fleet Admiral, taking with him nearly a third of the Marine Corps who refused to continue serving under an administration that would sanction such atrocities. The schism created two distinct Marine factions, those still loyal to the world government, and those now allied with Sengoku's new, True Justice, movement. Civil war within the Marines seemed inevitable until an unexpected development changed the equation. Revolutionary forces, led by Dragon, seized the opportunity created by the chaos to launch coordinated strikes against world government strongholds. Not to destroy them, but to expose further secrets, hidden facilities, classified research, historical truths long suppressed. Most shocking was the release of information about the Void Century, fragments of the true history that the world government had worked for centuries to erase. The revelation that the ancient kingdom had been a democracy overthrown by what would become the world government sent shockwaves through a populace already reeling from the G5 revelations. 3 months after G5, representatives from nations across the world gathered in a neutral location, Fishman Island, symbolic for its position between the surface world and the ocean depths. Their purpose, to discuss the formation of a new global coalition, independent of world government control. In a ceremony broadcast worldwide, the Declaration of Free Nations was signed by representatives from East Blue to the New World, establishing a framework for cooperation without world government domination. Standing on the sidelines, watching history unfold, Garp found himself approached by his 3 grandsons. "You did it, Gramps," Luffy said with characteristic directness. "You changed everything." "Not me," Garp demurred. "This was the work of countless people, making countless choices. Starting with yours," Ace pointed out. "At Marineford. Garp couldn't deny it. His decision that day, choosing family over institutional loyalty, had started a cascade that no one could have predicted. What happens next? Sabo asked, ever the strategist. War, probably, Garp admitted. The world government won't surrender power easily. There will be battles ahead, sacrifices to make. But not today, Luffy decided, throwing an arm around his grandfather's shoulders. Today we celebrate. As Luffy dragged him toward the feast being prepared to mark the historic occasion, Garp caught sight of a familiar figure watching from a distance, Lieutenant Commander Isako, now dressed in the modified uniform of Sengoku's True Justice Marines. She approached hesitantly, stopping at a respectful distance. "You found your line," Garp observed. She nodded. "I needed to see it clearly. Thank you for helping me do that. What will you do now?" "What Marines are supposed to do," she replied with newfound conviction. "Protect people. All people." Garp smiled, genuine pride warming his features. "That's the best answer I could hope for." As he rejoined the celebration, surrounded by family and allies both old and new, Garp reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From marine hero to traitor to revolutionary symbol, none of it planned, all of it stemming from a single moment of choice. He had no illusions about the challenges ahead. The world government remained powerful, with resources and allies of its own. The conflict between the old order and the new coalition would likely define the coming era. But for the first time in decades, Garp felt he was truly fighting for justice, not the absolute, unyielding version Casimir had championed, nor the compromised, corrupted form the world government had imposed, but something more human, more nuanced, and ultimately more real. True justice wasn't perfect. It wasn't absolute. It was a process, a struggle, a constant effort to balance order with freedom, security with rights, strength with mercy. As night fell over Fishman Island and the celebration continued under the glow of coral luminescence, Garp found a quiet moment alone on a balcony overlooking the festivities. Sengoku joined him, the two old friends standing in comfortable silence. "Do you regret it?" Sengoku finally asked. "Any of it?" Garp considered the question seriously. "I regret not acting sooner," he admitted. "Not seeing clearly what the Marines were becoming." "But Marineford?" "No. I'd make the same choice again." "As would I, now," Sengoku acknowledged. "Though it took me longer to get there." "Better late than never, old friend." They watched as below them, pirates and revolutionaries and former Marines mingled in a celebration that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Luffy challenged Ace to an eating contest while Sabo refereed. Dragon and Koala discussed strategy with island representatives. Kazan shared a drink with former enemies turned allies. "The world is changing," Sengoku observed. "The world is always changing," Garp replied. "We just helped it change for the better this time." As a new dawn approached, casting its light across the gathered coalition of unlikely allies, Garp felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. Whatever came next, whatever battles loomed on the horizon, they would face them together, guided not by absolute doctrine but by the simple, human desire for a more just world. And that, Garp thought, was the truest justice of all. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.